Chapter 1074. Out of all the vassal states, the one that would most likely not attack Wang Sheng was the Song Kingdom, which was under Song Yan's control. However, the positions of both parties meant that Wang Sheng and Song Yan could not be together, unless Wang Sheng was willing to marry into the Song family and become Song Yan's husband. Of course, the most important thing was that Wang Sheng had to give up all thoughts of saving the girl in his dreams. Otherwise, the Song family and the girl in his dreams would definitely fight to the death. No matter what, it would be impossible for them to be together. I'm afraid the second is the Tang Kingdom. Wang Sheng did not show his thoughts. Steward Zhou immediately said the second-ranked vassal. Long before the Tang family was in theft, they had been working hard to improve the people's livelihood in their territory. After the country was established, the people's livelihood was the strongest. There were also many experts. They did not provoke others easily, but the other vassals did not dare to provoke them either. The third should be the Sure Kingdom. The Son of Heaven nodded. Steward Zhou became more and more attentive. The Sure Kingdom's territory is second only to the Tang Kingdom. The number of experts they have is no less than the Tang Kingdom. If not for a period of time, when the main family and the branch families were at loggerheads, I'm afraid we would have to consider who is second and who is third. Let's tie. Wang Sheng interrupted, giving the Son of Heaven and Steward Zhou a shock. Why? Steward Zhou subconsciously blurted out. After saying it, he realized that it was inappropriate. However, the Son of Heaven also asked at the same time, so that Steward Zhou would not feel so awkward. Why did the Sure Kingdom want to kill me back then? Wang Sheng did not answer directly, but asked the two of them instead. Because you grasped the secret of upgrading a lesser-grade spirit, killed a disciple of the Sure family's branch family, and destroyed a peerless treasure map. The Son of Heaven could not remember it clearly, but Steward Zhou seemed to have an impression of everything in the world and blurted it out. When he reached the end, he suddenly revealed a shocked expression. Peerless treasure? The Sure Kingdom and Xiaogua had obtained an opportunity to enter the core of the ground of Thousand Despair. It had been almost 2 years now, and everyone was very sure that Xiaogua and Xiaogua must have obtained something from the land of Thousand Despair. Even Wang Sheng had obtained a batch of it. Wasn't the 500-year-old antique weapons that Qian Xingyuan was selling right now proof? The Sure family picked it first. Wang Sheng only said 5 words, but Tianzi and Steward Zhou immediately understood what Wang Sheng was talking about, and their faces changed. Something that could affect the rankings, and it was picked first. What could it be? What could it be? Tianzi and Steward Zhou basically knew what was going on. If it was really as they had deduced, it would definitely affect the royal family's actions. The Sure family picked first. Needless to say, the Chiu family would be the second, and the last one would probably be Wang Sheng. Moreover, it was very likely that Wang Sheng only got some insignificant things. Speaking of which, the Chiu family had probably changed quite a bit. If they were not clear about these things, it would cause them to have a wrong estimate of the strength of the various vassal states. If they were to make a wrong judgment, some unknown operation in the future might fail because of this. This was a big deal. Since the Sure family was going to move up in the rankings, then the Chiu family would probably move up as well. None of these big families were simple. Back then, the Song family was bullied to such an extent. Once the Chiu family revealed their hidden strength, they directly climbed to the top. The Song family had hidden strength, but did it mean that the other families didn't? Actually, taking advantage of the chaos, Steward Zhou, you guys can use your superior skills to explore the other family's trump cards. This is also a great opportunity. When Wang Sheng saw their expressions, he knew what they were thinking. He leisurely picked up a glass of wine and drank it before slowly making his suggestion. Steward Zhou respectfully filled Wang Sheng's cup and put it down. In his heart, he was also thinking about Wang Sheng's idea. Steward Zhou didn't need to mention the rankings. If the Sure family and Chiu family had made a wrong estimate, then the other families must also have made a mistake. After returning, they would have to reevaluate and reinvestigate. The wrong result, it was better not to mention it. At this point, the Emperor and Steward Zhou no longer had the mood to drink. They hurriedly said goodbye to Wang Sheng and then directly returned to the palace to discuss with the others. As for Wang Sheng, he was directly left here. Anyway, the Empress was still here, and so was Mayer. Let Wang Sheng do whatever he wanted. While waiting for Mayer and the Empress, Wang Sheng was also thinking about what he should do during this period of time. Cultivation was definitely a must, but Wang Sheng also knew that just relying on Changsheng Gong Fu's routine cultivation was definitely possible, but the efficiency would not be high. Before the secret of the core of the Place of Thousand Despair was revealed, Wang Sheng must cultivate to the legendary realm. Otherwise, he was afraid that Wang Sheng would definitely be reduced to ashes. Without the strength of the legendary realm, there was absolutely no way for him to survive. This was Wang Sheng's premonition. The Yazi transformation was afraid that it would not be easy to achieve. Even if it could be achieved, there would be no lack of killing. This was what Yazi did, and it could not be achieved peacefully. Forget it. It was better to ask for the old Taoist's advice. If the old Taoist did not have any good suggestions, Wang Sheng planned to go to the mountain Yuland and have a good killing. The Empress didn't let Wang Sheng wait for long. She just sat alone for an hour, and then the Empress and Mayer came out. Next, naturally, it was Mayer who personally sent the Empress to the Dream Lane and then from there back to the palace. As for Wang Sheng, he walked back to Changsheng Gongfu alone. When Wang Sheng returned home, he found the old Taoist, threw a bottle of Wuliangye to the old Taoist, and asked directly, "Old Taoist, how can I quickly break through to the legendary realm?" "You?" The old Taoist took a sip, raised his head, and asked. "Yes." Wang Sheng nodded. "Why are you in such a hurry?" The old Taoist directly scolded. "You said it yourself. Haste makes waste. Have you forgotten why you cultivated again?" "To survive." Wang Sheng replied with a smile. He knew that the old Taoist must understand. This reason was so strong that even the old Taoist could not refuse it. After thinking for a while, he sighed and said, "Not for the time being. How about going back to the Laojun Temple to look for it?" Without hesitation, Wang Sheng immediately agreed. Rosa was still in the mansion, so Wang Sheng directly told Rosa to tell Mayer that he and the old Taoist directly left the city and rushed to the Laojun Temple. "Old Taoist, Mayer is in a hurry to set a date. You and the Grand Abbey Dean haven't calculated it yet?" After leaving the city and walking for a long time in the suburbs of the capital, Wang Sheng felt that there was no one around. He then asked the old Taoist Ling Su, "Is there any trouble, or is Mayer's physical condition not suitable for it?" The old Taoist, of course, knew that there was no one around, so when he heard Wang Sheng's question, he asked, "You can see it too? There's really a problem?" Wang Sheng was shocked. Chapter 1075. "Come on, I don't believe you can't tell." The old Taoist didn't believe Wang Sheng's surprise at all. He directly asked Wang Sheng, "Now that we're in your house, do you think your words are more important or Mayer's?" "Mayer." Wang Sheng answered without hesitation. "What?" The old Taoist directly asked with a smile. "That's because Mayer is the one who takes care of the entire residence, inside and out." Wang Sheng smiled bitterly. "I don't have much time to come back." "Of course. Mayer's words are more important. Even if you stay in a house every day, do you think your words are more important than Mayer's?" The old Taoist didn't hide the disdain on his face. He directly mocked Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng shrugged. He didn't intend to argue. It was meaningless to argue with the old Taoist on a hypothetical issue. "Tell me, has there been any change in Mayer recently?" The old Taoist Ling Su didn't intend to continue talking in riddles. He directly asked, "I was going to wait for 2 months to find a way to tell you. Since you also feel that something is wrong, then just say it." "Changed?" Wang Sheng thought for a moment and quickly answered, "Her cultivation is higher, and she's getting more and more beautiful. She's getting more and more anxious to get married." "Is that all?" The old Taoist smiled. "Being together every day, you might get used to a lot of things. You won't feel that there's much change. Well, actually there is. She's getting more and more charming." Wang Sheng didn't need to think at all. He just didn't want to admit it first. Now that he thought it through, he gave another answer. "She's very attractive. I don't dare to have close contact with Mayer now. I don't even dare to make her happy." I'm afraid that I won't be able to hold on for long. Last time, when we talked about getting married, Mayer was so happy that I almost couldn't control myself. Are you relying on the Buddhist incantation of 9 words to stay calm? The old Taoist asked. That's right. Wang Xing nodded. You have to use all 5 words, or else I'm afraid the confrontation formula alone won't do. Even you have to rely on the 5-word formula of the 9 secret words to keep calm. Think about how others feel. Old Taoist Ling, Su let out a long sigh and said, do you really think you can order everyone in Duke Chongqing's mansion just by relying on your title? That's why Mayer has the final say. Wang Sheng smiled bitterly. He had pretended not to notice and cooperated with them. He thought that the marriage would be fine, but he did not expect that the old Taoist and the Grand Abbey Dean did not think so. Maybe it will be better after we get married, Wang Sheng said with some insincerity. Mayer's condition might be the result of hormone secretion. When the two of them performed the ceremony of marriage, there might be a balance of yin and yang, and this situation would not happen. You said it yourself. Do you believe it yourself? The old Taoist sneered and did not hesitate to expose Wang Sheng's lie. You are not married to Rosa, and you are not married to that girl from the Song family. How can you be a husband and wife? Why can't you be with Mayer? Wang Sheng smiled bitterly again. The old Taoist knew too many of his secrets. He could not convince the old Taoist with the reason of keeping chastity before marriage. He could only smile bitterly. Not to mention you, even I, the old Taoist, do not dare to make Mayer happy. Looking at Wang Sheng's bitter smile, the old Taoist sighed. Now, as long as she smiles, she's a peerless beauty whose beauty can topple nations. That's really enough to make anyone fall head over heels for her. She is still a peerless beauty even when she doesn't smile. Wang Sheng smiled proudly. Rosa and Mayer are rivals in love. Even if she knows that Mayer is definitely the official wife and cannot compete with her, her attitude towards Mayer has already surpassed that of a concubine toward a mistress. The old Taoist reminded Wang Sheng of some details that he had not noticed before. Wang Sheng pondered for a moment. Indeed, Rosa seemed to have been brainwashed by Mayer. She listened to everything and did whatever she was told to do. She was even more loyal than the most obedient servant. Previously, Wang Sheng had thought that she knew when to advance and when to retreat. Now that the old Taoist had mentioned it, Wang Sheng realized that there was more to it than that. Let's talk about something else. The old Taoist continued with a smile. Do you really think that the concert tickets can be sold for 10 times the price? That a method of bathing in the forest can be sold for 50 million gold coins? Or do you think that a complete map of the grounds of 1,000 extremities is worth 500 million gold coins? Is it because Mayer unconsciously used her charm to influence their judgment when she was negotiating with them? Wang Sheng said with slight uncertainty. The old Taoist was very dissatisfied with Wang Sheng's self-deception, so he asked in an unpleasant tone, then what do you think is the reason? In other words, Mayer is actually able to slightly control her attractiveness and only release the part that is beneficial to her. Furthermore, she doesn't overdo it? Wang Sheng touched his nose. He really didn't want to admit this, but it seemed to be the truth. I can only say that Mayer's talent is too amazing. It was also the first time the old Taoist had considered Wang Sheng's statement. After a while, he nodded and admitted it. I think we should get married while I can still use the 5-word formula to suppress Mayer's charm. Is that okay? Wang Sheng once again brought the topic back to the original question. It was still about the wedding date. Are you sure that you won't be affected after you get married to Mayer? The old Taoist once again showed a disdainful sneer. Are you sure that you can still remain calm after Mayer can't control her joy after you get married? If you have this confidence, why do you still ask us about the date? Can't you just set a date? Even if you don't look at the date, if you pull Mayer to bed, do you think Mayer will refuse? Old Taoist, even if you don't tell the truth, we can still be friends. Wang Sheng found that he might have smiled more bitterly today than he had in the past year. As far as I know, the old Taoist didn't laugh at Wang Sheng this time. Instead, he said seriously, according to the records of the Laojun Temple and the Imperial Palace, there have been women born with seductive bones in history. Those who could live past the age of 25 never had their soul spirits exceed 5 stars, and their cultivation never exceeded the 5th stage. You should be able to imagine the reason, right? They're afraid that their men can't stand it. Wang Sheng sighed. That should be the case. The old Taoist wasn't completely sure, but the general inference should be right. Are there any that exceed 5 stars? Those that exceed the 5th stage? Wang Sheng asked in disbelief. Yes. The old Taoist nodded with certainty. Isn't Mayer one? As for those recorded in history, basically none of them lived past the age of 25. How'd they die? Just now, he was still worried about himself. Now, Wang Sheng started to worry about Mayer. Either they become a witch and get killed by a group of female experts in a chaotic battle. Old Taoist Ling Su had no choice but to remind Wang Sheng of the dangers involved. Either that, or you'll be humiliated to death by a bunch of experts who have lost control. Finally, the old Taoist added, it'll all happen when you're in the 8th stage. Chapter 1076. Damn, why didn't you say so earlier? Wang Sheng was very anxious. Mei Er's guards in the mansion might not be able to withstand Mei Er's charm. It's okay. The old Taoist waved his hand, indicating to Wang Sheng not to worry. Those women are asking for it. Their charm is too strong, making them feel that they can easily control the world. Mei doesn't have such thoughts at all. Her heart is now on you and business, so don't worry about it for the time being. Phew. Wang Sheng let out a long breath, slightly relieved. The improvement of Mei Er's cultivation has something to do with you, right? The old Taoist asked Wang Sheng very seriously. Her original spirit was only 4 stars. That's right. Wang Sheng nodded. You know about Mei Er's source spirit. It's a 4-star illusionary spirit fox. The Empress obtained a secret technique from the Imperial Palace that can raise her source spirit by 1 star, making it a 5-star illusionary spirit fox. Later, it was me who made her believe in me, that the original spirit can still continue to improve, and then it became like this. What should I say about you? The old Taoist sighed. Originally, you could already marry the original Mei Er after you advanced to the 8th stage, and with the effect of the 1st stage of the calm heart cultivation method. What should we do now? The Abbey Dean and I can find an auspicious day for you, pushing it back a few months or even a year, but that is already the limit. How are you going to face Mei? Wang Sheng was completely speechless. Who would have thought that the improvement of Mei Er's cultivation would have such a strong side effect? If he had known earlier, Wang Sheng would not have guided Mei Er to let her original spirit evolve. It would have been fine if it had evolved into other aspects, but Wang Sheng had dug his own grave by guiding Mei Er to evolve into a 9-tailed celestial fox. The 9-tailed celestial fox, Goddess Daji, was a super boss-level calamity that could bring disaster to the world. He had recklessly guided Mei Er to evolve in this direction. In the 8th stage realm, if Mei Er fully unleashed her charm, she would probably be able to attract the majority of people whose cultivations were lower than hers. Unfortunately, Wang Sheng seemed to have given Mei Er a direction to develop into a 9-tailed celestial fox. If she really reached the 9-tailed realm, it would be the 14th stage, which was 2 realms stronger than the current old Taoist Ling Su. Looking back, it seemed that Wang Sheng had gone further and further on the road of death, and in the end, he had put himself in. Sure enough, he had brought this upon himself. Is there any way to solve Mei Er's problem? Wang Sheng sighed for a long time, but there was nothing he could do. He could only consult the old Taoist Ling Su. There are a few ways. Both of them slowed down and were vigilant of their surroundings. The old Taoist walked slowly and replied to Wang Sheng. However, each method is temporary. It is likely to bring more terrible effects. No one knows which method will solve it perfectly. Tell me about it. Wang Sheng could only sigh in his heart. What else could he do? It's inevitable that her charm will increase. The old Taoist also knew the reason for Wang Sheng's sigh. He could only pat him on the shoulder and said, "Who asked you to give her that kind of confidence? In the future, Mei Er's development is no longer under your control. Since charm can't be stopped, we can only control it. The old Taoist looked at Wang Sheng's dejected look and could not help but laugh. There are a few methods that should be able to increase control, but the specific effects are unknown. What methods? After sighing again, Wang Sheng suddenly raised his head and said, "Tell me, as long as there is hope, I will definitely make her be able to control it perfectly. You have the first method with you, the mind-guarding meditation technique." The old Taoist said slowly, "This technique can clear the mind of a cultivator. After completing the first stage, it will definitely increase one's control over oneself. There is no doubt about this. If one's cultivation talent is outstanding and can complete the second stage, then at least when one reaches the peak of a legendary realm, Mayor will not lose control." Wang Sheng nodded. This was actually the best method. No matter what it was, be it charm, strength, or anything else, the best method was to control it and not make it disappear. The second method is the same, but it's a technique of Taoism. What old Taoist Ling Su said were all possible methods. With your status in Taoism, obtaining this technique is not a problem at all. However, the effect may not be as good as the mind-guarding meditation technique of the royal family. In the short term, it may be stronger than the royal families, but in the long term, the mind-guarding meditation technique is definitely better. No way. Wang Sheng's face was full of disbelief as he stared at the old Taoist. He could not understand it at all. Taoism's mind-guarding meditation technique is not as good as the royal families? Are you kidding me? Was this a joke? Taoism's mind-guarding meditation technique, which stood aloof from worldly affairs, was actually not as good as the treacherous royal family's mind-guarding meditation technique. This was not a joke. Although I also feel embarrassed, this is the truth. The old Taoist Ling Su was indeed a little embarrassed, but this did not stop him from speaking the truth. Taoism does have some good things, but unfortunately they are sealed in those inheritance arrays and cannot be taken out for the time being. So, understood. Wang Sheng stopped the old Taoist Ling Su's words in time. He organized his words and asked again, "The methods you mentioned are basically this kind of control method?" "Yes." The old Taoist immediately gave an affirmative answer. "I also like this girl Mayer, and I don't want to destroy her strongest advantage." Wang Sheng completely believed this. In his own residence, other than Wang Sheng, the only person who was second only to Wang Sheng, or even comparable to Wang Sheng, was the old Taoist Ling Su. Apart from her personal feelings for Wang Sheng, Mayer treated the old Taoist as if he was her closest elder. It would be strange if the old Taoist did not like Mayer. "Are there any other similar techniques?" Wang Sheng asked. "Have you heard of them in the world?" "No." The old Taoist shook his head. "This time, I returned to the Laojun Temple to discuss with the Grand Abbey Dean to see if we can open up our Taoist heritage and find out if there's a stronger one inside. If there is, you and I can help Mayer get a set." It turned out that this was the old Taoist idea. Wang Sheng was not sure how powerful the so-called Taoist heritage was, nor did he know if there was a suitable technique inside. However, Mayer's situation did not seem to be able to wait for too long. How long would it take to cultivate the mind of tranquility to the second stage? Not everyone was like the old Taoist Ling Su. Suddenly, a thought flashed through Wang Sheng's mind. He turned to the old Taoist and asked, "If I tell you something, would you be able to rely on the current Taoist cultivation method and modify it into a higher level cultivation method? Tell me about it." The old Taoist was also interested and immediately replied to Wang Sheng. However, at this point, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist frowned at the same time and looked in one direction. Chapter 1077. Obviously, Wang Sheng was not the only smart person in the world. As long as it was the leader of a family, no one was a fool. Wang Sheng could ask the emperor to send the 3 great priests to do some sabotage and framing. He could also bribe the Godly Might prison to attack the Xia family. Other forces could do the same. Anyway, at this time, no matter which expert was in trouble, it would be a lot of puzzles that could not be solved. No one knew who did it. How could those smart people not seize such a good opportunity to mess things up? Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su had left the city alone. This was clearly a good opportunity that could not be any better, especially when their destination was almost certain to be the Laojun Temple. It created the best conditions for a group of experts to ambush on the road. This was especially so when Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su had intentionally slowed down their footsteps for the sake of Mayor's matter. While they were slowly discussing the matter along the way, it gave these experts ample time to set up an ambush. Before the two of them even reached the Old Lord Temple, they were still several tens of li away from it. It was true that old Taoist Ling Su was an expert, but how high could he be? At most, he was at the legendary peak. Of course, he must be a real legendary peak, the kind that could fight 10 people alone. But so what? Was it possible that only the Laojun Temple had legendary peak and other forces did not? As for Wang Sheng, he was only in the 7th or 8th stage. No matter how powerful he would definitely be crushed by a real legendary peak expert. As for whether killing Wang Sheng would cause the secret of the Land of Thousand Despair to remain unsolved, this was not a problem for the decision-makers. As long as Wang Sheng did not die, everything would be fine. After killing old Taoist Ling Su and capturing Wang Sheng alive, what kind of information could they not get? What kind of secrets could they not get through torture? In order to deal with Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su, the ambushers had sent out more than 40 people, lying in ambush on the path that Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su would definitely pass by. Of course, a lookout was necessary. If they couldn't discover Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su in advance, how could they prepare for the ambush? Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su had discovered it, and they were in charge of keeping watch. However, at this distance, Wang Sheng could rely on his keen sense of smell and hearing to discover the other party, while old Taoist Ling Su could rely on his powerful cultivation to discover the other party. However, the lookout had no way of discovering Wang Sheng and the old Taoist in advance. This place wasn't a flat plain, nor was it empty. The two of them were walking on the official road, and there were some bushes on both sides of the official road. Not only that, but there was also a bend in the road. The people lying in ambush were obviously unable to detect the two of them. After looking at each other, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist nodded tacitly. Wang Sheng pointed to the bushes next to him, and the old Taoist tacitly went in there. Wang Sheng was an absolute expert in this kind of anti-ambush special operations. Usually, the old Taoist and Wang Sheng would be under Wang Sheng's command, and this was even more so in times like this. The person in charge of keeping watch was also a legendary expert. He was usually a spy and had a lot of experience. This time, he had come out with his companions to ambush Wang Sheng, and he had long been eager to give it a try. Every time Wang Sheng sucked blood from the other families, he was attracting hatred for himself. Some of the experts from the other families had long been dissatisfied. Now, they finally had a chance to deal with Wang Sheng ruthlessly. The spy hid in the dark and kept his eyes on the road. Once Wang Sheng and the old Taoist appeared, he would send a signal to inform his companions in ambush. In the past, someone had followed Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. As long as they went to the Laojun Temple, the two of them had never taken any other route. They basically took the official road and never deviated from it. This time was obviously no exception. He just had to wait for the right time to see them. As a scout, he had enough patience and experience to wait for Wang Sheng and the old Taoist to appear in his field of vision. According to the time, Wang Sheng and the others should appear at this time, and the difference should not be more than a quarter of an hour. Suddenly, the scout felt that something was wrong. Just as he was about to take action, his mouth was covered by a hand, and his head was twisted violently. The strength of those hands was so great that no matter how hard the legendary Realm Scout tried to resist, he could not resist that powerful force. The scout only heard an unusually close click, and then his vision went black, and he lost consciousness. The scout's last thought was that his mind was full of disbelief. Who was it? He had actually snuck up behind him without making a single sound. Not to mention soundless. He hadn't even sensed any aura. After all, he was a legendary realm expert. What kind of expert was the one who plotted against him. Could it be Ancestor Ling Su? From the beginning to the end, he never thought it would be Wang Sheng. Everyone thought that Wang Sheng's cultivation was only at the 7th or 8th stage. So how could he hide from the senses and aura of a legendary realm expert? Even if he was hiding, he did not let his guard down. Why was that? Had old Taoist Ling Su become so powerful? And the one who made the move was Wang Sheng. Standing face to face in front of old Taoist Ling Su, the old Taoist could not hear Wang Sheng's voice and could not feel Wang Sheng's aura, let alone this legendary realm scout. Just now, when he broke the scout's neck, he used a familiar move from the military killing technique. Originally, Wang Sheng's strength was already close to 100,000 pounds, and with the addition of the technique of using spiritual energy recorded in the military killing technique scroll, his strength was almost doubled. Not to mention a fragile cervical vertebra. Even if it was a steel bar twice as thick as that guy's neck, Wang Sheng could break it. When it came to the scout's side, the dozens of people lying in ambush could not escape Wang Sheng's hearing and smell, and naturally could not hide from the old Taoist. Gently putting down the scout's body, Wang Sheng made a few gestures to the old Taoist. The old Taoist understood and took out a pair of crystal goggles from his storage ring, as well as a mouth and nose shield, and put them on his head. Whether it was the goggles or the mouth and nose shield, they were all made by Wang Sheng according to the style of equipment he brought from Earth. In addition to the compressed airbag, the mouth and nose shield even had an activated carbon filter layer. Wang Sheng himself also put on the equipment, and with the old Taoist on the left and right, they quietly moved towards the area where a large number of experts were lying in ambush. The experts lying in ambush also stared at the road, but their vigilance was obviously not as high as that of the scout. After all, they were still waiting for news from their companions, so there was no need to be so tense all the time. Some of them even had their eyes closed and were quietly cultivating. They looked very calm and had the demeanor of an expert. Boom, boom, boom. Just as everyone was waiting calmly, suddenly, a series of explosions sounded around them. Countless black smoke rose into the air, and with the help of the explosion, it quickly shrouded the area from several directions. Chapter 1078. Wang Sheng placed a small bag of explosives in each of the locations where his men were lying in ambush. As a special ace sniper from Earth, he possessed tons of black gunpowder. If he did not know how to equip himself with some special explosive devices, Wang Sheng could just find a block of tofu and smash his head against it to kill himself. These small explosive bags were secretly configured by Wang Sheng himself. There was a simple timer device inside, which was not a problem for Wang Sheng at all. Incense sticks with a stable burning rate and fuses of different lengths could be used separately. The amount of black gunpowder in the explosive bag was not much, only a few kilograms. However, a lot of things were added to the outside of the explosive bag. There were things that would produce a lot of black smoke when burned, things that would produce irritating gases when burned and exploded, and even some poisonous things. In particular, Wang Sheng had used a steel plate as a fixed background to achieve a simple directional blasting function. The blasting surface was all aimed at the people lying in ambush. A series of explosions brought about a lot of noise, but to be honest, the real lethality was not very great. The main function of the black gunpowder was to send the special effects added by Wang Sheng in the direction he wanted them to go. The guys lying in ambush were unlucky. Today's weather was sunny, cloudless, and there was not a trace of wind. It could be said that wherever Wang Sheng's directional explosion went, that direction would be shrouded in black smoke, poisonous gases, and irritating gases. The explosions in several directions at the same time covered the entire area in an instant. Several experts who were caught off guard immediately smelled the strong, irritating smell and coughed chaotically. Their coughing made the other companions immediately vigilant. They quickly held their breath for fear of inhaling something poisonous. As soon as the black smoke shrouded the area, everyone's vision instantly turned into night. The sudden darkness was the most frightening thing. Even the dozens of experts in the legendary realm could not help but panic. At this time, two figures like agile cheetahs rushed into the black smoke from two directions and began to kill crazily. The two people who rushed in were, of course, Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su. The two of them were prepared. Not only did they wear goggles, but they also wore masks. The filtering layer that Wang Sheng had the great grandmasters create was enough to allow the two of them to breathe freely. There was no need to worry about the irritating poisonous gas. Old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation level allowed him to sense everyone's location at all times. Wang Sheng was his only companion, so there was no way he would mistake him for someone else. As for Wang Sheng, his 5-word formula of the mantra of 9 words could allow him to move like a bat in a place where there was no light at all. Why would he care about the mere darkness? As for whether he would be discovered by the experts lying in ambush, are you kidding? Changing golden stripes? Is that a vegetarian? Wang Sheng used the Tiger Fong army knife and military fighting techniques. Within 10 seconds of rushing in, he had taken down 3 legendary realm experts. It was the same for old Taoist Ling Su. He was carrying the 500-kilogram sledgehammer that he had forged for Wang Sheng years ago. His techniques were sharp and merciless. His first move was a killer. The experts lying in ambush had not expected that Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su would suddenly rush in and start a massacre. They were thrown into confusion. The sudden darkness and poisonous gas made everyone lose their usual shock. Caught off guard, they lost 6 of their companions within 10 seconds. However, these experts were experts after all. After the initial panic, they immediately calmed down when they heard the screams of their companions. They were all experts, and they knew very well that the more they panicked, the more dangerous it would be for them. The remaining 30 people stood in place almost at the same time. They held their breaths and listened attentively to the enemy's battle. In an instant, Wang Sheng knew that the best time to attack had passed. With a shake of his hand, a heavy sniper crossbow appeared in his hand. He pulled the trigger at a nearby expert who was trying his best to listen to the surrounding movements. Whoosh! Boom! The heavy arrow directly hit the target's chest. The explosive formation on it unleashed its power and instantly blasted a deep hole the size of a bowl. At the same time that the 4th target fell, an explosive bag identical to the one that had just exploded appeared under Wang Sheng's feet. The only difference was that it was heading downward. Wang Sheng's figure suddenly squatted down after moving more than 10 meters away from his original position. Boom! A loud sound rang in everyone's ears. More black smoke and more irritating poisonous gas filled the entire area. The experts lying in ambush, who were releasing their breaths and listening attentively, felt dizzy from the sudden explosion. They had just heard the sounds of battle, but now they were all disrupted. With the black smoke rising from such a close distance, the scene became more and more difficult to see. Before they could react, something seemed to have fallen beside them. It did not sound very loud. Needless to say, it must have been a stone that had been blown up by the explosion just now. "Steady, don't be fooled," one of the experts shouted, and the people lying in ambush immediately stood still. In this situation, they could not see the enemy, and the enemy certainly could not see them. As long as they did not move and did not make any noise, the other party might not have any good way to find their position. Unfortunately, this beautiful wish did not last for more than 2 seconds when a series of explosions occurred around them. This time, there were not only smoke and poisonous gas, but also really powerful fragmentation explosions. Moreover, there were more explosions and they were closer to them. The explosions occurred right beside them, right under their feet. After a series of explosions, the situation that they had finally stabilized with great difficulty became a joke. Everyone used their greatest strength to protect themselves. They had no idea where the enemy was, where they were, and when they would attack. During this period of time, Wang Sheng had successfully killed another 4 enemies. As for old Taoist Ling Su, his killing efficiency was even higher. He swung his sledgehammer, and every time he swung it down, his target would definitely die, and the corpse would be smashed heavily onto another companion. It was quite a big movement, but the people lying in ambush could not tell which one was their enemy. What was more frightening was that from time to time, there would be the sound of things falling around them. However, the scene was filled with black smoke, and they could not see whether it was a stone or a bag of explosives that had fallen to the ground. Other than using all their strength to protect themselves and then waving their weapons helplessly, there was no better way. The sound of explosions from time to time interfered with the hearing of all the experts lying in ambush. The black smoke filled the air, and their vision was completely destroyed. As for their sense of smell, under the irritating poisonous gas, it was already extremely courageous to dare to breathe, let alone distinguish the smell of the enemy. Almost all of their senses were destroyed, leaving only the sense of touch and aura detection. They could only take a beating and could not fight back. They could only hear the sound of explosions and the screams of their companions. When the number of people who could detect the aura at the scene decreased, someone finally broke down and desperately ran like a headless fly, hoping to escape from this poisonous gas-filled hell. Chapter 1079. Even when he forced himself to calm down, he still couldn't fend off two murderous gods. Could it be that he could just run for his life after being frightened out of his wits? That was obviously impossible. The more he ran, the faster he would die. Wang Sheng made several extremely smooth moves in a row. After killing off 5 of them, he calmly reloaded his heavy sniper crossbow and shot an expert who had escaped from a smokescreen. The expert had seen the light and thought he had a chance of survival. At a distance of less than 500 meters, Wang Sheng didn't even need a scope. He could accurately shoot his opponent with his hands. By the time Wang Sheng shot another expert who had almost gone crazy with an arrow, old Taoistling Su had also finished off the rest of the experts who were lying in ambush. In this sudden attack, Wang Sheng relied on the cover of the smoke and killed 17 of them with military killing techniques and 3 with a heavy sniper crossbow. Including the first scout, Wang Sheng killed a total of 21 people. Old Taoist Ling Su killed 24 of them with a 500-kilogram sledgehammer. A total of 45 legendary experts, none of whom could escape. They all died in the battle. Wang Sheng was a little angry because of what happened to Mei Er. However, he was the one who caused it. He couldn't blame others, so he could only vent his anger on these guys. These guys were also unlucky. Of all times, they just had to become Wang Sheng's punching bags. If it was a face-to-face battle, Wang Sheng wouldn't be a match for these experts. Perhaps Wang Sheng could rely on his strong physical fitness and fighting skills to kill 1 or 2 of them, but it was absolutely impossible to kill 21 of them. However, these guys were unlucky. Since they wanted to ambush him, Wang Sheng didn't want to fight them head-on. Simpson was an ace sniper not good at calculating and killing in one shot. Only a fool would fight head-on. Under the cover of the smoke and poisonous gas from a sneak attack, Wang Sheng artificially created a favorable situation for himself and killed these guys one by one. After killing all the people, Wang Sheng vented a lot of the vexation in his heart. He finally felt a little more carefree. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist did not stay in the black smoke for long. They came out and found a place to wait for the smoke to dissipate. Of course, Wang Sheng did not stay idle either. He first dragged the corpses of the scout and the 2 fellows who had escaped the smokescreen over. He looted the spoils of war while looking for clues. They were all legendary experts, and even if their respective families didn't value them, they could rely on their own cultivation to make a fortune. From the 3 corpses alone, Wang Sheng found over a dozen storage rings. The weapons were all good weapons, and these people were indeed rich. This allowed Wang Sheng to make a small fortune. Thinking about the fact that there were more than 40 of them in the black smoke, Wang Sheng knew that he was going to make a fortune. Of course, what was even more tempting was the power behind these people. Even if they swore to God that this was a private action by these people, they would definitely have to pay a sky-high compensation. As for the identity of these people, the person in charge probably thought that it would be no problem for them to deal with Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su, since there were more than 40 legendary experts in the legendary realm, and half of them were at the peak of the legendary realm. Therefore, they did not remove all the marks on their bodies that could indicate which family they belonged to. In fact, there were many personal items in their storage rings that were marked with family marks, so it was easy to identify them. The Gon family. The Gon kingdom was located in the southeast of the capital city and was the closest to the capital city. Only they could easily arrange dozens of legendary experts around the capital city without being discovered. Kid, aren't you surprised at all? Not angry at all? When old Taoist Ling Su saw that Wang Sheng did not feel strange or angry at all, he could not help but ask, "We worked together in the land of thousand despair not long ago. What's there to be surprised or angry about?" Wang Sheng laughed. "Old Taoist, you've lived for so many years. Haven't you gotten over it? The cooperation between us is the same as the cooperation between countries. When it's time to cooperate, we'll cooperate. When it's time to cheat, we'll definitely dig a big hole for each other. Isn't there a lack of smiles on our faces and weapons at our waists?" At this point, the secrets of the core of the land of thousand despair were about to be revealed bit by bit. It seemed that Wang Sheng's role was limited to this. For the great dukes, the descendants of their families who had been killed by Wang Sheng, the descendants of their families who had been conned by Wang Sheng, and the gold coins of their families who had been earned by Wang Sheng, were all going to be repaid bit by bit after the deed was done. What's the big deal about setting up an ambush? You'll have to pay for what you've done. Wang Sheng smiled at old Taoist Ling Su. Am I right, old Taoist? That's right. The old Taoist nodded and said in a very understanding manner, "That's why they've paid for what they've done." Wang Sheng was speechless. He gave the old Taoist a thumbs up. Wang Sheng's comprehension was too strong. He was able to apply what he had learned on the spot. Without Wang Sheng's continuous explosions and smoke, the smoke that had shrouded the area had almost dissipated. It was time to go in and search for the spoils of war. "Old Taoist, take a seat." Wang Sheng looked at the old Taoist and asked the old Taoist to rest where he was. "I'll go and collect the corpses. I can sell them for a good price." The old Taoist waved his hand. He really admired Wang Sheng's forbearance in doing business with the people who had just plotted against him. Although the old Taoist had seen through the ways of the world, it was not easy for him to be so carefree. "Wow, it can't be." Not long after Wang Sheng entered the area, he yelled, "Old Taoist, you're too cruel. Everyone's head is smashed. Can't you just leave the corpses intact? The corpses are so badly mutilated that they can't even be sold for a good price." The old Taoist was resting and on guard. He didn't even look at Wang Sheng. He just stretched out a hand and raised a middle finger. He was too lazy to say anything to Wang Sheng. This place was not far from the Laojun Temple. It was more than 20 miles away. The huge explosion here just now, coupled with the rising smoke, was so eye-catching. He believed that the people at the Laojun Temple had seen and heard it. It wouldn't take long for them to come over to check. Sure enough, Wang Sheng had just neatly lined up the corpses on the side of the road and searched for the spoils of war when he felt someone approaching from the direction of the Laojun Temple. There were quite a few of them. "Greetings, old ancestor, elder." After a while, dozens of Taoists came over. When they saw old ancestor Ling Su and Wang Sheng, they hurriedly greeted. After greeting, they saw the neatly lined up corpses by Wang Sheng. "You came at the right time." Wang Sheng turned to the leader of the Taoist priests and instructed, "Come, take care of these corpses and send them to the Gon family's guild hall in the city. Have the Gon family's elder in the capital discuss the matter of compensation with Mei Er. Also, inform Mei Er to slaughter them as much as you can." Chapter 1080. The old Taoist leader was stunned. He looked at old Taoist Ling Su, but the old Taoist didn't say anything. Seeing this, the old Taoist quickly agreed and waved his hand. The Taoist priests who followed hurriedly went to find some tools to lift the corpses. Remember to ask the Gon family for a fee for collecting the corpses. Wang Sheng didn't forget to remind the old Taoist, since they dared to ambush the patriarch, we can't let them get away with it. Hearing that these guys were actually ambushing Patriarch Ling Su, the face of the old Taoist leader changed. He nodded fiercely at Wang Sheng. "Don't worry, elder, they will have to give us an explanation. Go, go." Wang Sheng nodded with satisfaction. Remember to be more ruthless. Otherwise, these guys will forget the pain after the scar has healed. Let them suffer so much that they want to twitch when they think about it. Then, they will know what will happen if they dare to do it again. If you're not good at bargaining, let Mayor negotiate. The old Taoist leader understood immediately. He thanked Wang Sheng, then led a group of Taoist priests to transport the corpses to the capital. The Gan family will be especially lively today. Do you believe me, old Taoist? Wang Sheng and the old Taoist watched the group of Taoist priests rush to the capital and asked the old Taoist with a smile, "I don't care if they die." The old Taoist directly gave a very old Taoist attitude. Then he put his hands behind his back and continued to rush along the official road to the old Taoist temple. Wang Sheng also slowly followed and walked side by side with the old Taoist. Continue with what you said before. The old Taoist tone was very calm, as if killing so many people was as simple as washing his hands. Tell me about it. Our Taoism's silence technique really needs to be improved. If one is startled by a favor or disgrace, one will suffer a great calamity. What did it mean to be shocked by favor or humiliation? Next in line is favor. If one gains it, one is shocked. If one loses it, one is shocked. This is called being shocked by favor or disgrace. What does it mean to be in great trouble? The reason why I have a major illness is because I have a body. Since I don't have a body, what trouble do I have? Therefore, it is important to regard one's body as the world, if one can entrust the world. Love regards one's body as the world, if one can entrust the world. If you can't see, it's called barbarian. If you can't hear, it's called hope. If you can't fight, it's called weakness. These three cannot be questioned, so they are mixed together. The top does not hide. The bottom does not hide. The rope cannot be named. It returns to nothingness. This is called the formless state, the appearance of nothing. It is called the dazed state. His head was nowhere to be seen, and his back was nowhere to be seen. Adhering to the ancient Tao, to resist the present. To be able to know the beginning of time is called the Tao era. To the extreme of emptiness, keep quiet and steadfast. All things work together, and I see them again. Everything returns to its roots. Returning to the root means tranquility, and tranquility means reporting on orders. To report is to be at ease. To know 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 is to be at ease. 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 To be at ease is to be at ease. Wang Sheng was very straightforward. He recited the 10th to 16th chapters of Tao Te Ching. However, Wang Sheng felt that only the 13th, 14th, and 16th chapters were related to cultivation. After being carried out by Wang Sheng, the old Taoist did not speak again. He walked slowly with his hand behind his back, his face solemn. Sometimes he would even stop. It was obvious that he was pondering very hard. In terms of the understanding of Taoism theory, 100 Wang Shengs would not be able to catch up to the old Taoist Ling Su. Therefore, Wang Sheng did not dare to disturb the old Taoist. He quietly accompanied the old Taoist, spending a few times more time than usual to rush to the Laojun Temple. The Laojun Temple had long received the news. After waiting for no one to come, the Grand Abbey Dean almost went out to search along the way. But he knew that the old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation was much higher than his, so he did not do so. Hearing that Wang Sheng and the old Taoist had walked back slowly and had arrived at the Laojun Temple, he was relieved. "Abbey Dean, arrange a quiet room for the three of us." As soon as he saw the Grand Abbey Dean, the old Taoist Ling Su did not even pay attention to the Grand Abbey Dean's greeting and directly gave him an order. The Grand Abbey Dean was an observant person. As soon as he saw the state of ancestor Ling Su, he knew that something big must have happened. It was a big deal. Without saying a word, he personally led the way and went straight to the Scriptures Depository. Under the Grand Abbey Dean's arrangement, the courtyard of the Scriptures Depository was surrounded by dozens of old Taoist Qing cohort. Not even a mosquito could fly in. The little Taoist children in the Scriptures Depository were also replaced by old Taoist Qing cohort. The Grand Abbey Dean brought Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su straight to the fourth floor of the scriptures depository. He opened a dusty room and cleaned a little. Even a few formation stones were activated. It was estimated that no movement in the room could be heard outside. Only then did the three of them enter. Paper and brush were prepared in the room. They were all of the highest quality Qian Sheng Yuan. The old Taoist did not even look at them. He directly said to Wang Sheng, "Memorize them." Wang Sheng agreed. He went forward and quietly and neatly wrote down the few chapters that he had memorized for old Taoist Ling Su. After reading the first chapter, the Grand Hall Master also turned serious. When he reached the 16th chapter, he was like Taoist Ling Su, deep in thought. Junior brother said that he wants me to improve Taoism's art of maintaining silence. The old Taoist pointed at the few chapters that Wang Sheng had written down. He said to the Grand Abbey Dean, "I think it is very promising. However, I still need some help." "What kind of help do you need? Just tell me." The Grand Abbey Dean said without hesitation, "As long as I can do it, I will do it. Is there anyone who still wants to fight for the inheritance?" The old Taoist was silent for a moment. He suddenly asked the Grand Abbey Dean, "Don't tell me that you still have doubts after your great improvement in cultivation. Elder, you have done so many things over the years. Everyone has seen it." The Grand Abbey Dean did not talk about his own cultivation at all. Instead, he changed the topic and only talked about Wang Sheng. "If you bring it up now, there won't be too many objections. A few years ago, old Taoist Ling Su had mentioned that he wanted Wang Sheng to help him unlock the legacy array formation. However, at that time, be it the Laojun Temple or the Tao sect, there were too many opposing voices, so the matter was left unsettled. There were many reasons. Some were fighting for power, and some were distrustful of Wang Sheng. But now, the situation was different. Wang Sheng had helped the Temple of Laojun fight for many things and gave the Temple of Laojun a lot of tangible benefits. Everyone could see that. Another reason was that the Grand Abbey Dean's position was now unshakable. No one could threaten him anymore. If he brought up the inheritance now, there would naturally be fewer objections. If possible, let's see if we can open the land of inheritance. The old Taoist Ling Su said to the Grand Abbey Dean, "With our Taoism's art of maintaining silence and the enlightenment of our Taoism inheritance, I might be able to improve a mental cultivation method called observing void and maintaining silence. It will be of great help to our Taoism. I will arrange it now." The Grand Abbey Dean said calmly, "If anyone jumps out to obstruct the general trend, don't blame the Laojun Temple." Chapter 1081. The people in the capital were destined to be shocked today. The Laojun Taoist Temple, which had always kept a low profile and did not pay much attention to the affairs of the world, had suddenly seen dozens of Taoists bringing dozens of corpses into the capital and heading straight for the Gan Clan Guild Hall. Elder Gan, who was stationed in the capital, didn't know what had happened at all. He was shocked by the corpses sent by the Taoists. Among the dozens of corpses, he knew more than a dozen. The remaining 20 were not unknown, but their heads had exploded, so he couldn't identify them for a while. There were only a few that he hadn't seen before. When he saw these familiar corpses, Elder Gan's mind buzzed and directly exploded. His first reaction was to wonder if the Gan clan had met with some sort of calamity. How could an expert of this level die? When he calmed down, he realized the problem. Why were these corpses sent by the Taoists of the Laojun Temple? The old Taoist, who was in charge of sending the corpses, was also of the Qing generation. He didn't know whether it was because of Wang Sheng's suggestion or because he was irritable enough, but he ordered people to put the corpses in the Gan clan hall. When he saw Elder Gan come out, he sneered. "Elder Gan, these people ambushed Ancestor Lingshu and Elder Wang on the way back to the Laojun Temple. They wanted to assassinate us." The old Taoist sneered and said, "But they were unlucky." As soon as they made their move, the greeting team from the Laojun Temple arrived. Elder Wang was kind and said that Elder Gan definitely didn't know about this, so he asked us to send the corpses back. In addition, he asked you to ask what happened and give an explanation to the Laojun Temple and Changshan Duke's mansion. After saying this, the old Taoist turned around and left. The group of Taoists who followed him also turned around and left. After walking for a while, the old Taoist seemed to think of something and reminded Elder Gon. After asking clearly, go to Changshan Duke's mansion and talk to Madame May about how to explain it. The old Taoist didn't tell the whole truth. For example, it was originally 2 people who did it, but now it was a large group of people from the Laojun Temple. For example, the wounds on the corpses had been further treated on the way. It was impossible to tell that only 2 people had done it. This was considered showing weakness to the enemy, not letting the enemy know their true strength. In fact, the old Taoist couldn't help but tremble after examining the corpses on the road. All of them were legendary masters. Many of them were at the peak of the legendary realm, but they were all killed by Wang Sheng and the Patriarch. From the time they heard the explosion and saw the black smoke to the time they rushed over, it only took a quarter of an hour for experts like them to travel 20 miles. In a quarter of an hour, not only did the 2 of them kill more than 40 experts, but they also plundered everything clean. Even the corpses were arranged neatly. What kind of concept was this? Over 40 experts might not even be able to last 5 minutes against the 2 of them. Wang Sheng was definitely in the 7th or 8th stage realm, so it wasn't possible for him to be so strong. That could only mean old ancestor Ling Su was already a terrifying master that they could not even imagine. In this regard, the people from the Laojun Temple were very proud. The Taoists of the Laojun Temple came and left quickly, but the people who were watching the show were many layers inside and outside. There were people who followed them from outside the city gate all the way here. Everyone was waiting to see what was going on. Of course, the words of the old Taoist had already explained a lot. At least the people around could tell that these people wanted to ambush Wang Sheng and old ancestor Ling Su on the road. In the end, they were unlucky and caught up with a large group of people from the Laojun Temple who came out to receive them. They were completely annihilated. For the time being, this was what everyone knew. The identity of these people should be the Gon family, but no one had the time to distinguish who they were. As for the casualties on the side of the Laojun Temple, no one knew. They only knew that the Laojun Temple was forced to come knocking. The people outside were watching the show with their own thoughts. There was no lack of people from other forces who saw this and quickly released the news. Elder Gon finally reacted. Now, he could no longer think about what to say. He had to stabilize the situation first. Under Elder Gon's order, the Gon family guild hall was temporarily closed. All the guests were politely and forcefully asked to leave. The corpses were immediately carried to the backyard. Elder Gon knew exactly what these experts were going to do. Even the news of Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su leaving the city was sent out by Elder Gon using messenger birds. Originally, this group of experts was hiding at the border between the Gon Kingdom and the capital, at the edge of the land of Thousand Extremes. They were waiting to deal a heavy blow to the next force that entered the land of Thousand Extremes. Anyway, the current situation was so chaotic. As long as they did it cleanly, no one would know who did it. The ones who were attacked could only suffer in silence. Among the 45 experts, more than 20 were at the peak of the legendary realm, and more than 20 were at the late stage of the legendary realm. All of them were the elites of the elites. Such a force was more than enough to ambush a team of more than 20 people of the same level. However, for the sake of caution, in order to capture Wang Sheng alive and kill old ancestor Ling Su, the Gon clan used 45 experts to deal with 2 people. As a result, 45 corpses were placed in the backyard of the Gon family guild hall. Elder Gon didn't know how to cry. Should he cry that these experts were unlucky and chose the wrong time to ambush them and were caught by the Laojun Temple? Or should he cry that he didn't send the news at the right time and shouldn't have had thoughts of attacking Wang Sheng and old ancestor Ling Su? No matter what, the Gon family had suffered a big loss this time. 45 experts at the late stage and peak of the legendary realm. This loss alone was enough to make the king cry. This didn't include the explanation he had to give to the Laojun Temple and Changshan Duke Mansion. The Gon family was tough, so they didn't want to give an explanation. Was this a joke? Did the Gon family still want to enter the core of the land of Thousand Extremes in the future? Did they still want the concert tickets? Now that Changshan Duke Mansion controlled these 2 key places, The Gan family had to bow their heads, even if they were unhappy. However, did they really have to face Madame May of Chongqing Duke Mansion? Was that something an ordinary person could face? Didn't you see the Chiu family, Xia family, and Tang family had an expression like someone died in their family a few days ago? Xia family didn't know what they got, but the whole country was forced to sell their family property. How could they easily face it? Wangxing already had a nickname called Money Craving. Didn't the people in the family know that Madame May of Chongqing Duke Mansion also had a nickname called Money Craving? She was a person who could squeeze out gold coins from people's bones. If she didn't have 200 million gold coins, she wouldn't be able to leave Chongqing Duke Mansion. It was too late to say anything now. Originally, Elder Gon only sent the news out. He wasn't the one who made the decision. Elder Gon could only send the news back and let the patriarch and the other elders have a headache. Cry to death. Chapter 1082. A Taoist priest from Duke Chongqing's residence had already gone to report. The old Taoist had specially instructed them to pass on Wang Sheng's words. Of course, his main intention was to extort the Gan family. If the Gan family was willing to be besieged the moment they entered the land of despair, they could ignore Wang Sheng's ultimatum. However, it was not an easy decision to make. A sharp glint flashed across Mei Er's eyes when she received the news. Mei Er was very amiable towards the Taoist priest who came to deliver the news. She instructed Steward Wang to entertain them warmly and not to neglect them. However, when she turned around, Rosa saw Mei Er's gaze as sharp as a knife. The Gan family was doomed this time. Rosa snorted coldly in her heart. Similarly, she was extremely furious at the Gan family's suicidal behavior. She just did not show it in front of outsiders. However, in front of Mei Er, Rosa did not need to hide her anger at all. She almost wanted to send people to the Gan kingdom to kill them. Rosa, don't be anxious. Mei Er was obviously better at controlling her emotions than Rosa. Seeing that Rosa was about to lose control, Mei Er stopped her in time. The Duke has said that you and your sisters should focus on your cultivation during this period of time. You're the last guarantee for us to sleep peacefully in the future. We can't afford to lose you. Wang Sheng, Mei Er, and Rosa had discussed the arrangements for the girls in Grandview Garden. Before they could fight, Wang Sheng would never let them go out and risk their lives. This would not change in the next few years. Rosa was also aware of this, so she nodded obediently. Don't worry. When the Gan family's compensation arrives, we will put a bounty on their heads. Mei narrowed her eyes, and a cold glint flashed again. So, let's see how much gold we can dig out from their mouths. The two women were filled with fighting spirit when they thought of the joy they had when they robbed the Xia family. These two extremely powerful wills seemed to have penetrated through time and space, causing the Gan clan leader, who was far away in the capital of the Gan nation, to suddenly shiver. The Gan family's patriarch and a few elders had been waiting for news. From the time they received the messenger bird from the capital city to the time they made the necessary arrangements, the speed was extremely fast. This was due to the fact that they were the closest to the capital, and the high-speed messenger bird could fly from the capital to the capital in less than half an hour. Coupled with the arrangements and mobilization of troops, it only took less than an hour. Based on the speed of a normal person, those experts should have successfully killed old Taoist Ling Su and taken Wang Sheng away by now. As long as they entered the lands of Thousand Despair, no one would know who they were or where they had gone. As for Gonggua's side, all he had to do was wait for them to be brought back for interrogation. Everything felt perfect, and the suppression of power was absolutely like the pressure of Mount Tai. It was impossible for there to be any variables. It was just that these people were not efficient in their work, completely disregarding the feelings of those behind them. Until now, there had not been any news sent back. Of course, it was very likely that they had left in a hurry and were afraid of being discovered, so they waited until they reached the border of the lands of Thousand Despair. Amidst the anxious wait, the patriarch and the elders finally received the messenger bird. The disciple who received the message did not dare to delay. Without even opening the letter, he immediately sent it to the monarch along with the bag. Filled with anticipation, The king opened the messenger bird bag and took out the letter inside. With just a few glances, his entire being became sluggish. When the elders saw that the monarch's condition was not right, one of them impatiently snatched the letter from the monarch's hands. After reading it, their expressions changed greatly. When the letter was circulated through the hands of all the elders, everyone fell silent. The foolproof plan had actually failed, and it had failed because they did not consider that the Laojun temple would send people to receive them. Everyone had the urge to curse. Wang Sheng, an old Taoist Ling, Su had left the city to go to the Laojun temple so many times, but never once did they let the people from the Laojun temple pick them up on the way. Now that only the two of them had left, they ended up encountering such a tragic situation. How could they explain this? 45 legendary experts, of which more than 20 were at the peak of the legendary realm, were completely annihilated. How many legendary experts did the Gon family have in total? Half of them were gone just like that. The patriarch of the Gon family wanted to cry, but no tears came out. How did he suddenly become muddle-headed and come up with the idea of sending people to attack Wang Sheng, an old Taoist Ling Su? This was great. Not only did they lose everything, but Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su were not harmed in the slightest. However, the Gon family was going to be in big trouble. Both Duke Chongqing's mansion and the Laojun temple wanted an explanation from the Gon family. If they did not give an explanation, they would not be able to get away with it. Thinking about the value of the core area of the place of Thousand Despair and the huge secret that might be hidden in it, the Gon family had to give an explanation even if they had to grit their teeth. The problem was that this explanation would not be easy. Someone had to take the blame. Whoever ordered the ambush, they had to push out a person with enough weight, probably at least at the level of an elder. If the person's status was low, not only would Duke Chongqing and the Laojun temple not believe it, even those onlookers would not believe it. Dozens of legendary experts at the peak of the legendary realm, and you randomly pushed out a small fry to command them? Who were you fooling? That was not all. The compensation would be even more troublesome. At the thought of facing Madame Mei from Duke Chongqing's mansion, all the higher-ups of the Gon family felt numb. Although the Xia family had been cheated a lot, the Chiu family and the Tang family had revealed that they had paid tens of millions of gold coins for an extremely simple way to enter the place of Thousand Despair. Moreover, it was just a way. Everyone had a good relationship, so there was no substantial damage. But they had sent experts to ambush them and were killed instead. What kind of price would they have to pay to face Madame Mei? Tell me, what should we do? The king of the Gon country finally calmed down after a moment of absent-mindedness. Now that most of the elders were here, they had to quickly think of a solution. Everyone was silent. Since the matter had already happened, there was no point in pushing the blame. What was the point of being caught red-handed? No one saw what happened. Why don't we ask Duke Chongqing and the Laojun temple for an explanation? An elder suggested in a low voice, "Our people are dead. Isn't it normal to ask them for an explanation?" The king looked at the elder who suggested this, as if he was looking at a fool. The other elders' gazes also turned strange. The elder who spoke immediately realized that something was wrong. Damn it, he had forgotten about the core area of the place of Thousand Despair. It was fine to bite back, but in the future, the Gon family would have to say goodbye to the place of Thousand Despair. They had just obtained a part of the peerless treasure from the core area of the place of Thousand Despair, but they had yet to obtain the true secrets. Did the Gon family not want them anymore? Send a sharp-tongued person to Duke Chongqing's mansion to listen to Madame Mei's request. Another elder suggested a reliable method. No matter what, the Gon family was in big trouble this time. Chapter 1083. The Gon family was thinking of ways to remedy the situation. No matter what, it had already happened and the dead were dead, but the living still needed to continue living and unraveling the secret of the ground of Thousand Extremities. As for how to settle the score with Wang Sheng in the future, that was a matter for the future. They couldn't fall out with him now. They had to pay a sufficient price to resolve the misunderstanding. Otherwise, if other families had the right to enter the core area of the ground of thousand extremities and the Gon family didn't, the Gon family would be the first to bear the brunt of the destruction of their country after the true secret was revealed. For a secret of this level, it was definitely better to have fewer competitors and fewer people who knew about it. If they couldn't squeeze in, they could only be eliminated. Again, the 8 great families and the 8 vassal states weren't monolithic. It was normal for them to smile on their faces and take out their weapons. The relationship between Wang Sheng and the 8 great families was the same. It was just that Wang Sheng's rise was too short and hadn't reached the point where the 8 great families were afraid of him. Those who were weak would be the first to be purged. The various families already knew what had happened, and their reactions varied. Some secretly laughed at the Gon family's stupidity, while others secretly rejoiced that they didn't have the time to make a move. There were all kinds of thoughts, but there was one thing that everyone had in common. They were waiting to see the Gon family's fate. Since they had made a move, they should be aware that they wouldn't succeed. Did they really think that they would be fine just because they tried to swagger around and failed? The people of the Imperial clan were filled with endless respect for the Gon clan for daring to provoke Wang Sheng and ancestor Ling Su. The ignorant were indeed fearless. A long time ago, when the royal family rebelled, the 3 great consecrators and the old consecrator taught the experts of the royal family a lesson. They were all at the peak of the legendary realm, but the peak of the legendary realm couldn't be compared to one another. The 3 great consecrators were at the peak of the legendary realm, but they had entered the core area of the ground of thousand extremities and came out safely. Back then, ordinary peak legendary experts would be instantly killed by the 3 great consecrators. And when the 3 great consecrators faced the old consecrator of the royal family who had lived in seclusion for many years, they could only fight evenly. As for ordinary legend rank experts, they wouldn't even have the qualifications to approach them. If they were to come within 3 meters of them, they would be shocked to death by their aura. That was something that happened a year ago, and a month ago, the 3 great reverends thought that they had already reached the limit of their cultivation, and that it was impossible for them to advance any further. But Wang Xing told them in the private room of the theater that there was still a way up. In reality, the 3 great consecrators had successfully advanced, breaking through the peak of the legendary realm, and entered the realm of the 10th stage, which they had never dared to imagine before. If there were any experts who claimed to be at the peak of the legendary realm, who dared to attack them? Any one of the 3 great consecrators could instantly kill those so-called peak legendary realm experts with their little fingers. Only when one truly crossed this realm did one realize how terrifying one's strength was. Wang Sheng's cultivation was only at the 7th or 8th stage, so how did he know that he had broken through the legendary peak realm? Other than ancestor Ling Su of the Laojun Temple, was there anyone else to guide him? The 3 great consecrators were now at the powerful realm of the 10th stage, and they didn't dare to easily have any crooked thoughts about ancestor Ling Su. What kind of bear's heart and leopard's guts did the Gon family eat to dare to have such an idea? Ambush and kill ancestor Ling Su to capture Wang Sheng alive? Do you know how to write the word death? Do you know how many strokes there are? Ridicule was ridicule, but whether it was the emperor, the 3 great consecrators, or those families who were watching the fun, no one felt that the Gon family's method of plotting against Wang Sheng was wrong. At most, it was the Gon family's bad luck. Those who didn't know would think that the Gon family met with many experts from the Laojun Temple and went to greet them. Those who knew would sigh that the Gon family dared to touch Wang Sheng by ancestor Ling Su's side. That was all. In this era, scheming against each other was simply a matter of course. So what was wrong with this matter? From Wang Sheng's point of view, naturally all the methods of scheming against Wang Sheng were wrong. But from the point of view of others, as long as it served their own interests, there was nothing wrong. Wang Sheng himself understood this point. Was there any lack of such things on earth? Take Wang Sheng himself, for example. In the eyes of the enemy, he was a heinous criminal, but in his own country, he was a hero. Right and wrong, it was nothing more than the standpoint one stood on. Therefore, Wang Sheng himself did not immediately go to the Gon family to kill in all directions for revenge. Now it was clear that Mei-er's matter had a much higher priority than the Gon family's scheme against him. As for the Gon family's matter, Mei-er would first scrape a layer of land from them. Wang Sheng's main focus was still to perfect the Tao sects, maintaining tranquility to observe emptiness together with old Taoist Ling Su. In the quiet room of the Laojun Temple's Sutra Depository, old Taoist Ling Su sat for 2 days and 2 nights, while Wang Sheng flipped through the Laojun Temple's book collection one by one, from the Tao sect's theory to cultivation methods. Since he had majored in the Taoist scripture, he naturally had to study the Tao sect's theory as well. 2 days later, just as old Taoist Ling Su and Wang Sheng were slowly enjoying the Tai Chi nourishing porridge, the Grand Abbey Dean, who had disappeared for 2 days, once again returned to the quiet room. Seeing that Wang Sheng and the old Taoist were drinking porridge, the Grand Abbey Dean did not stand on ceremony. He got himself a bowl and sat down with Wang Sheng and the old Taoist to drink slowly. "How is it?" After the Grand Abbey Dean finished his bowl, the old Taoist asked. "Almost." The Grand Abbey Dean smiled and answered affirmatively. "Basically, no one objects. So there's still people?" The old Taoist asked unhappily. "There are a few temple masters who are dissatisfied." The Grand Abbey Dean nodded and explained. "However, they have already set off here. Some of the disciples from those small Taoist temples are willing to join our Laojun temple, and I have already agreed. They will persuade their temple masters on the way." The Grand Abbey Dean said it very casually. It sounded like it was an understatement, but Wang Sheng and the old Taoist both understood the meaning behind it. What small Taoist temple? How could a small Taoist temple have the right to interfere in the Tao sect's inheritance? It would at least be a combination of dozens or hundreds of Taoist temples. As for those people persuading their temple masters, it was even more ridiculous. If those temple masters could not even persuade the Grand Abbey Dean of the Laojun Temple, could the disciples in their own Taoist temples be persuaded? The struggle for power might not be easy. It was just that the Grand Abbey Dean handled it very calmly and did not want the old Taoist to have too much contact with these things. From this point, Wang Sheng could also feel that the Grand Abbey Dean was really filial to ancestor Ling Su. Although this matter was related to him, Wang Sheng would never object to the Grand Abbey Dean doing this. Even if it was for Mei-er, Wang Sheng would not allow anyone to destroy it. Chapter 1084. The land of inheritance of Haotian Taoism couldn't be opened casually. It had to wait for the arrival of the leaders of Haotian Taoism, and when it was opened, all the leaders must be present. Whether it was waiting for these people to arrive or the Grand Abbey Dean to persuade these people, it all required enough time. During this period of time, Wang Sheng returned to the capital and met the emperor. The purpose of meeting the emperor was to inform the emperor that he planned to let Mei-er cultivate the mind of tranquility that the emperor gave to Wang Sheng. As for the reason, Wang Sheng didn't hide it. He only told Mei-er about the improvement of her cultivation for fear that there would be a problem. The emperor had no opinion on this. How could there be a problem to let his own daughter cultivate his own cultivation? What's more, Wang Sheng also informed him in advance. He was extremely benevolent to him, so how could he not agree? As for why Wang Sheng suddenly had this idea, the emperor went back and checked the information with the 3 great masters. They were all shocked. The improvement of Mei-er's cultivation couldn't be hidden from the 3 great masters. In the beginning, they didn't pay attention to it. But when they found out what would happen to those women who cultivated to the level of Mei-er, they almost had a heart attack. Luckily, Wang Sheng discovered early. Otherwise, if Mei-er really couldn't control it, the consequences would be extremely serious. Not to mention other things, she wouldn't be able to get past the empress. Based on how much the emperor doted on the empress, once something happened to Mei-er, no one knew what kind of disaster it would cause. As for the improvement of Mei-er's cultivation, no one would find it strange. The 3 great masters could even break through the limit of the 10th degree realm. Was it a big deal for Mei-er to break through to the 5th degree realm? Wang Sheng didn't hide anything from Mei-er. To be honest, Wang Sheng couldn't stand those conflicts that were arranged in soap operas on Earth. She could have explained it clearly with a single sentence, but she had to hide it because of some so-called unavoidable difficulties. Either you hide it to the end and never say it for the rest of your life, or you misunderstand me to death, but you still have to say it in the end. Cheap. When Mayer found out that it was because of her high cultivation that led to the possible serious consequences, she didn't know what to say. Blame yourself for being naturally seductive? Who could be blamed for it? Did he blame his parents? Blame Wang Sheng for not guiding her in her cultivation? However, Wang Sheng's intention was also for her own good. Moreover, how could Mayer bear to blame Wang Sheng? Especially when Mayer found out that Wang Sheng, an old Taoist Ling, Su left the capital in a hurry to Laojun Temple in order to find a suitable cultivation method to strengthen her control, but was ambushed on the way. She couldn't control her emotions and directly threw herself into Wang Sheng's arms with tears streaming down her cheeks. Mayer was completely unaware of how much damage she could cause when she put on such a bashful and pitiful expression. Wang Sheng had to use all of his concentration and even pull in all of his battle-conscious minions before he forcefully used the 5-word formula and the 6-word formula, which he was not very familiar with, to forcibly control his emotions. He did not turn into an orc on the spot and push Mayer down. The soft and fragrant body was in his arms, but he couldn't make any further movements. To Wang Sheng, it was simply torture. Fortunately, Mayer noticed Wang Sheng's abnormality in time and took the initiative to control herself, so that Wang Sheng didn't have to endure too much. Mayer completely accepted Wang Sheng's suggestion and immediately began to cultivate the mind of calmness preservation technique. Wang Sheng also stayed in the residence for a few days to guide Mayer in cultivating the mind of calmness preservation technique, until Mayer could completely cultivate for a whole week and day. Wang Sheng didn't care about it before, or rather, he didn't pay attention to it. This time, when he guided Mayer in her cultivation, Wang Sheng realized that Mayer's cultivation aptitude was no worse than those geniuses. Although she was only a 4-star phantom spiritual fox at the beginning, every breakthrough could increase Mayer's acupoints by 10, which was comparable to old Taoist Ling Su's. Wang Sheng stayed in Duke Chongqing's residence for half a month. Old Taoist Ling Su sent someone to deliver the news from Laojun Temple. All the Taoist sect masters and temple masters had arrived. Everyone had almost finished discussing, so Wang Sheng could go over. Mayer knew that Wang Sheng was going to Laojun Temple to fight for an opportunity for herself, so she didn't ask Wang Sheng to stay. She rubbed her palms together and turned the anger that she had accumulated these days to the 2 elders of the Gan family who came to Duke Chongqing's residence to seek reconciliation and an explanation. When Wang Sheng left the capital city again to rush to Laojun Temple, no one dared to ambush him on the road. What's more, this time Wang Sheng brought enough guards, and there were at least a dozen old Taoist Qing generation escorting him from Laojun Temple. Only a fool would make a move at this time. When Wang Sheng arrived at Laojun Temple, the Grand Temple Master didn't appear. Only old Taoist Ling Su was waiting for him. When he saw Wang Sheng, he just said to him, "The arrangements are almost done. Let's go." "Where to?" Wang Sheng didn't ask. Old Taoist was definitely going to take him to the land of inheritance. How could he casually ask about the land of inheritance of Taoism in the world? He just had to follow. There were still only 2 people, Wang Sheng and Old Taoist. The others seemed to be busy. There were also fewer old Taoists of the Qing generation. They were probably near the land of inheritance. After exiting the back door of Laojun Temple, old Taoist Ling Su brought Wang Sheng straight to the back mountain. Wang Sheng remembered very clearly that when old Taoist Ling Su first met him, he wanted to see the records of Laojun Temple. The old Taoist request was to carve a statue of Laojun to surpass the 10,000 statues of Laojun that Laojun Temple wanted to carve on Mount Laojun. This direction was clearly heading towards Mount Laojun. Could the land of inheritance of Taoism be at Mount Laojun? Just from the name, it was highly possible. It can't be. Wang Sheng thought of something else. The array of inheritance also runs for thousands of years. You said that it also relies on the earth fire vein. Could it be that Mount Laojun is an active volcano? Who told you that the array of inheritance runs on the earth fire vein? Old Taoist retorted to Wang Sheng with a look of contempt. F***CK. Wang Sheng was not going to talk about the rules of seniority with the old Taoist. He immediately cursed. Who was so interested in knowing the way to travel on the earth fire vein? It's just a possibility. There's no harm in being prepared. Old Taoist said slowly to Wang Sheng. You're thinking too much. TSK. Wang Sheng gave the old Taoist the middle finger. However, the old Taoist had indeed not said it for sure. Wang Sheng remembered that the old Taoist had only mentioned that the earth fire vein wasn't the only place in the underground palace. He did not mention that the land of inheritance also had the earth fire vein. Wang Sheng was the one who had misunderstood. Mount Laojun was huge. Wang Sheng followed the old Taoist along the ridges and valleys for almost a few hours. After walking for almost 100 miles, he finally saw traces of someone else. It was a familiar-looking old Taoist of the Qing generation. When he saw him looking around vigilantly, Wang Sheng knew that they were not far from the land of inheritance. Chapter 1085. Sure enough, as they walked along a few odd mountain terrains, Wang Sheng saw more and more old Taoists. When these Taoist priests saw Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su, they all cupped their fists and bowed respectfully. No way. Along the way, Wang Sheng could not help but exclaim in surprise when he saw the lonely little Taoist temple on the barren mountain. So simple. The Taoist temple had been there for God knows how many years and had not been repaired at all. It was in a dilapidated state and was on the verge of collapse. It felt like the Taoist temple would fall apart if the wind was slightly stronger. The Taoist temple was really small. It was so small that it only had a row of 3 rooms. It did not even have a courtyard. If not for the huge incense burner at the entrance, Wang Sheng would not have been sure that it was a Taoist temple. The most unbelievable thing was that there were Taoist priests stationed in such a small and run-down Taoist temple in such a desolate place. Seeing that the incense burner was not rusty at all, it was obvious that someone had been taking care of it every day. This run-down Taoist temple was on Mount Laojun. Anyone who passed by would be able to see it. Although it was a little remote, it was undeniable that it had never been hidden. From the foot of the mountain to the Taoist temple, one could clearly see a path made by people. Indeed, the most dangerous place was the safest. Mount Laojun had never forbidden anyone from entering, much less stopping anyone from coming here. Moreover, the terrain here was not the highest. Although it was a little difficult to walk, the surrounding mountains gave a clear view of the terrain. The Taoist temple was not hidden at all. This is the land of heritage? Wang Sheng asked old Taoist Ling Su. The old Taoist seemed to enjoy Wang Sheng's surprised look and nodded with a smile. Since this is the land of heritage, you should clean it up properly. However, this run-down Taoist temple was still in a dilapidated state. If it weren't for the many old Taoist priests around, Wang Sheng would have suspected that old Taoist Ling Su had brought him here for entertainment. However, it was undeniable that this place was indeed out of Wang Sheng's expectations. Even an ace sniper like Wang Sheng, who had been trained for a long time and would not let go of any details, did not think that this was the land of inheritance, let alone ordinary people. Wang Sheng followed the rugged path all the way to the Taoist temple. The closer he got to the Taoist temple, the stranger he felt. Wasn't the land of inheritance supposed to be protected by a powerful inheritance formation? Why isn't there even the slightest aura of an array formation here? From the looks of it, the old Taoist priest had no intention of explaining. However, Wang Sheng suspected that it was more likely that the old Taoist priest did not know either. In the middle of the 3 dilapidated rooms, there was an equally dilapidated statue of the Grand Supreme Elder. The clay statue had faded in many places, and some places were even damaged. Obviously, even if there were incense offerings here, it wouldn't amount to much. It was clean, but it could not hide the traces of time on the outside. Together with the old Taoist, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist bowed to the statue of the Grand Supreme Elder at the door. It was not that they did not want to go in, but it was too small and there was really no space inside. After bowing, Wang Sheng followed the old Taoist to the room on the left that looked like a kitchen. After entering, they saw a familiar-looking old Taoist with the surname Qing. The old Taoist bowed to them and then pointed to the side of the stove. There was a dark hole that was about half the height of a person there, and there were a few steps that seemed to lead down. Well, it was a Taoist temple above, and the land of inheritance was hidden in the belly of the mountain below the Taoist temple. Wang Sheng did not let the old Taoist Ling Su take the lead. He bowed and went in first. When he went in, Wang Sheng could not help but grimace. It was because the hole was a little too narrow, and Wang Sheng was big, so he could only squeeze in sideways. Fortunately, after going down a few steps, the space became more spacious. At least Wang Sheng could stand up, and his sides were much wider. Even if Wang Sheng swung his arms freely, he would not touch the sides. After walking down for about 10 meters, Wang Sheng saw a light and a group of people. It was said to be a group, but in fact there were more than a dozen people. Half of them were the old Taoists from the Grand Supreme Elder Temple that Wang Sheng was familiar with. There were only 6 that he was not familiar with, and all of them seemed to have good cultivation and were not young old Taoists. Their clothes were slightly different from those of the Grand Supreme Elder Temple, but they were generally the same. After going down with the old Taoist bowed politely to the 6 unfamiliar old Taoists. Ling Su greets the sect masters. Wang Sheng also followed, introduced himself, and bowed to the other party. This was a major event for the Taoist legacy, and etiquette could not be underestimated. It concerned Mei Er's future safety, and Wang Sheng did not want to ruin it because of a little inconsiderate detail. "We dare not. Greetings, old ancestor." Ling Su bowed, and the other sect masters hurriedly returned the greeting. Old Taoist Ling Su was not only the most senior in the Grand Supreme Elder Temple, he was second to none in the entire Taoist sect. Although these old Taoists were all sect masters, none of them dared to be rude to old Taoist Ling Su. After bowing to the old Taoist, the sect masters turned to Wang Sheng and bowed to Wang Sheng. "Greetings, Duke Changsheng." However, they did not address Wang Sheng as elder, but as Duke Changsheng. "Since everyone is here, let's begin." Among the 6 sect masters, one of them didn't seem to be particularly willing, and he directly urged them. The other 5 seemed very calm. Even though Wang Sheng could already see the excitement and agitation in their eyes, their actions still maintained the steadiness of a cultivator. Only the Grand Supreme Elder Temple knows the location of our Taoist legacy. The Grand Supreme Elder Temple stood up and said to the 6 sect masters, "Now that we have arrived, please open the door after checking." The 6 old Taoist sect masters did not stand on ceremony at this time, and walked forward together to the smooth stone wall. From the Grand Supreme Elder Temple's words, Wang Sheng knew that the Grand Supreme Elder Temple should know the location, but not the key to open the door. The few old Taoist sect masters had the key to open the door, but they did not know the location. This was probably a way for the old ancestor of Taoism to balance the different sects of Taoism. Wang Sheng even believed that the impatient person should be the guy who did not agree with Wang Sheng's participation previously. But he did not know what method the Grand Supreme Elder used to make him agree. Even so, he seemed to want to show his reluctance in front of everyone. It was a classic case of being convinced but not convinced. There was nothing on the bare stone wall, and under the light of the torch, everything could be seen at a glance. Even so, the 6 old Taoist sect masters still carefully checked the entire stone wall, not missing any corner. After a while, they nodded and said, "There is no trace of this door being opened." "Sect masters, please open the door." The Grand Supreme Elder smiled and said to the 6 sect masters confidently. Chapter 1086. It was obvious that there was a weak fluctuation of a formation on this stone wall. The formation on it was probably the so-called formation to open the door. However, Wang Sheng couldn't figure out how the formation opened the door after sensing it carefully. In the formation, there was no function of lifting or lowering, pushing or rotating. There was only a weak vibration. How was the door opened? A handle appeared in the hands of each of the 6 old Taoist masters. As soon as they were taken out, Wang Sheng could sense the clear fluctuation of the formation on it. However, Wang Sheng still couldn't figure out how to open the door. According to Wang Sheng's understanding, there were only a few actions to open the door. It was either moving horizontally or rotating. In short, it was to move the stone wall that was blocking the way forward. However, whether it was on the stone wall or their controllers, there was no such function. There was only vibration. What was that? The few old Taoist masters were about to stick the handles to the stone wall when the impatient old Taoist suddenly stopped. No, I have to check again in case your Laojun temple secretly opened the door and pretended to not open it. Sect Master of the Brilliant Connection, just say it. The Grand Abbey Master smiled at the Sect Master of the Brilliant Connection. Oof. The Sect Master of the Brilliant Connection turned around and looked straight at the Grand Abbey Master. Just say it. Don't think that I don't know that your Laojun temple has recently obtained a new cultivation secret manual. One of it is to enter and exit without destroying the formation. Do you have it? Yes. The Grand Abbey Master didn't show any sign of guilt or anger. He just admitted calmly, the Xing formula of the 9-word Sanskrit is specially used to deal with formations. This 9-word Sanskrit was created by Elder Wang and given to our Laojun temple. See, he has already admitted it. Did you hear that? The Sect Master of the Brilliant Connection Master didn't expect the Grand Abbey Master to answer so bluntly. He immediately shouted at the other 5 Sect Masters as if he had gotten the truth. He only admitted that there is a 9-syllables Sanskrit formula in which the Xing formula can be used against formations. Among the 5 old Taoist masters, the one who looked the oldest curled his lips and said to the bright Sect Master with dissatisfaction, "Since they have the ability, they will definitely go in and take a look." The Bright Connection sect leader shouted, "You're pretending to have us inspect you. Aren't you just trying to cheat us? Your cultivation level is high enough to kill junior brother Tongwei of your sect. You have the ability to do so, so you must be the one who killed junior brother Tongwei, am I right?" Another old Taoist, who looked the youngest, laughed. Nonsense. The Bright Connection sect leader was furious. How could I kill junior brother Tongwei? Junior brother Tongwei died because of a terrible illness. You had the ability to kill junior brother Tongwei, but junior brother Tongwei wasn't killed by you. The youngest old Taoist immediately retorted, just because he has the ability to go in, does that mean he's gone in before? Is it your reasoning? If you have evidence, then find it. If you don't, then don't waste everyone's time. The third old Taoist master didn't have a good temper. At least, he didn't have a good temper with the Bright Connection sect leader. He said unhappily, "Don't pester me endlessly. I'm very busy." Among the 5 sect leaders, 3 had already expressed their dissatisfaction. Although the remaining 2 didn't say anything, it was obvious from their expressions that they weren't on his side. The Bright Connection sect leader was snubbed, but he still didn't let it go. He inspected the stone wall up and down for a full 15 minutes before returning to his position unwillingly. "Did you find any evidence to open the door?" the old Taoist asked with a fierce face. No. In front of so many people, the Bright Connection sect leader didn't care if he was really making a scene. He could only reply angrily. "If you don't, then open the door," the old Taoist said directly. He took the lead and stuck the handle to a specific spot on the stone wall. Wang Sheng saw clearly that there were 6 faint circles on the stone wall. They were as thick as the mouth of a cup. One end of the old Taoist's handle happened to be stuck in one of the circles. The other 4 old Taoists also stuck their handles to the circles in front of their respective positions. In the end, only the Bright Connection sect leader was left. He looked reluctant. However, seeing that everyone was looking at him, he also knew that he couldn't offend them. In the end, he stuck his handle to the circle unwillingly. "Rise." The elderly Taoist priest gave the order, and everyone simultaneously injected their spirit chi into the handles in their hands. This handle was actually a unique formation stone. Once spiritual energy was injected, the formation inside would be activated immediately. Because it was stuck close to the stone wall, The formation on the stone wall was also activated by the handle. In an instant, there was a buzzing sound and all 6 handles started vibrating. Looking at this scene, Wang Sheng was still confused. Wang Sheng had expected these handles to vibrate, but could they open the door like this? Wang Sheng wasn't the only one who was surprised. The Grand Abbey Dean and the other old Taoists who saw this scene were also surprised. Everyone was surprised. The sound of the door opening seemed different from a normal door opening. This was indeed the land of inheritance. Even the opening of the door was so extraordinary. What puzzled everyone was that even after a quarter of an hour, the shaking was still going on, but the stone wall did not show any signs of opening. Could it be that the so-called door had been tampered with? Fortunately, the few old Taoists who were in charge of the handles knew that according to the records passed down by their ancestors, the door could only be opened in half an hour. Only 15 minutes had passed. It wasn't time to open the door yet. Otherwise, if it were those who didn't know what was happening, they would first suspect the Grand Abbey Dean and the Grand Supreme Lord Temple. They would suspect that the Grand Supreme Lord Temple had secretly entered and tampered with the door. The tremors grew stronger and stronger, and even the stone walls began to produce a louder rustling sound. Not only that, even the handles of the 6 old Taoist masters seemed to be vibrating along with it. It moved their arms and produced a high-frequency vibration. Wang Sheng suddenly understood. This was resonance. The way this door was opened was not in the ordinary sense of opening a door. It was not horizontal, vertical, or rotary. Instead, it was the vibration of the 6 handles that caused the entire stone wall to vibrate and resonate. In the end, the strength of the resonance grew stronger and stronger until the entire stone wall was shattered. The patriarch of Taoism had actually mastered such a profound theory. Wang Sheng exclaimed in his heart. He was also looking forward to it. Boom! Under everyone's incredulous gaze, after half an hour of vibration, the stone wall in front of everyone suddenly turned into fine powder. The entire wall collapsed and revealed the dark tunnel behind it. However, everyone's gaze was fixed on the Bright Connection sect master. Chapter 1087. The brilliant hierarch felt guilty. He feigned ignorance and asked everyone, "Why are you looking at me?" What else could he do? Just now, the brilliant hierarch kept trying to slander the Grand Supreme Lord Temple. He insisted that they had already opened it secretly and tried to create trouble in front of the stone wall. Now that the stone wall was opened, the brilliant hierarch was immediately at a loss. Who knew that the stone wall would be shattered into pieces when it was opened? If he had known, why would the brilliant hierarch jump up and down to seek trouble? In the end, he had only danced for half an hour when reality slapped him in the face. They really didn't open it. The evidence was conclusive. The brilliant hierarch's actions just now became a joke. Bright Connection sect leader, look carefully. Check if our Elder Supreme Lord Temple has entered before. The Grand Abbey Dean's voice came from behind. It was slow, but had an indescribable sense of mockery. Inform us when you're done checking. We still have to clear the debris and open the passage. Humph. The brilliant hierarch was furious. He snorted, but couldn't say anything. He retreated to the side in embarrassment. The Grand Abbey Dean waved his hand. A few old Taoists of the Qing generation immediately stepped forward and put the shattered stone wall into their respective storage rings. In less than half an hour, a passage that had just been cleared appeared in front of everyone. A few old Taoists of the Qing generation used the formation stones to breathe while clearing the debris. When the debris was cleared, the air in the passage was more or less refreshed. Because it was shattered by an array formation, the passage, which was about 30 feet long, was uneven. There were also potholes under their feet. Everyone was very careful when they walked. At the front were 2 old Taoists of the Qing generation. They held torches in their hands to light the way and led everyone forward. Fortunately, there was only one passage after it was opened. As long as they walked along the passage, they wouldn't have to worry about getting lost. After walking for a few hundred meters, everyone was dumbfounded. There was another flat stone wall in front of them, blocking their way. As they walked closer, Everyone could see the 6 faint but relatively clear circles on the stone wall. Needless to say, this was the same place as the previous stone wall. It still required the 6 headmasters to use their respective keys to open it. This time, the Bright Connection sect master didn't bring up the possibility that Lao Jun Guan had already entered. He behaved much more obediently. He did what the others did. When the other leaders took out their controllers and continued, he did the same. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su basically walked at the back. Wang Sheng would not do such a thing to show off, and the old Taoist was also disdainful of it. They just let them do whatever they wanted. Half an hour later, the stone wall broke into pieces again. It was the same as before. Take a breath, clean up the rubble, and then move on. When they opened the 3rd stone wall, everyone realized that the space in front of them had suddenly expanded to the size of the main hall of the Laojun Monastery. In the huge space, other than the lonely sitting statue of the Laojun in the middle, the rest of the space was empty. The sitting statue of the Laojun wasn't very tall. It was the height of 2 people, and it had a benevolent look. However, in Wang Sheng's opinion, the sculpting technique wasn't exquisite enough. At least the 3 pure statues that Wang Sheng had sculpted at the 3 Pure Temple were more lifelike than the sitting statue of the Laojun. No one seemed to have expected such a situation. Looking at this empty place, they looked at each other in dismay. Fortunately, the one who was the least devout to the Tao ancestor was probably Wang Sheng. Everyone else walked to the front of the Laojun statue and bowed respectfully. Wang Sheng was no exception. He followed the old Taoist Ling Su and did whatever the old Taoist did. He didn't stand out at all. After saluting, everyone began to carefully inspect the space. A few old Taoists of the Qing generation placed torches in several corners. There were more than 10 torches in total, illuminating the area very brightly. The surrounding walls were empty. There was nothing. They had checked several directions carefully. There was no circle similar to the previous stone wall. Moreover, the sound of knocking sounded like it was a solid stone wall. There was no sound of emptiness at all. Other than the passage they came from, there was nothing else in the other directions. There was no exit either. It was as if this was the end of the passage. Have we reached the place? Wang Sheng looked at the empty space with only the sitting statue of the Laojun and asked the old Taoist Ling Su in confusion. There was really nothing here. There wasn't even the slightest fluctuation of an array formation. Could this be the land of inheritance that old Taoist Ling Su said had an incomparably powerful inheritance array formation that even the old Taoist couldn't destroy? I don't know. The old Taoist also shook his head, looking puzzled. There is no record of what the land of inheritance looks like in the ancient books of the Laojun Temple. It only records that the inheritance array formation is very powerful. Perhaps it's in the records of other sects? The old Taoist explained to Wang Sheng, but his voice was a little too loud. The one with the lowest cultivation who came in was probably Wang Sheng, so everyone heard it clearly. The few sect leaders understood that Ancestor Ling Su's words were actually for them to hear. At the same time, he was also asking if there were any records of it in the ancestral books of their sections. The oldest one was also straightforward. He shook his head and said loudly, "Our ancestors only told us to keep the key well. They also said that the inheritance array formation is very powerful. There is no other record." The straightforward one was the same. "We are the same. There is nothing recorded in the books that have been passed down." A few of them took turns to speak. In the end, even the Bright Connection sect leader, who had always been disliked by everyone, also expressed his opinion. Basically, the records of everyone were more or less the same. It only said that there was a key that could open the land of inheritance. The Laojun Temple had the location of the land of inheritance. The other sects had the keys, but no one knew what was inside the land of inheritance. The land of inheritance, which had been sealed for at least 1,000 years, was so mysterious that a few Taoist sects were fascinated by it. In the past years, there was no lack of fights over the land of inheritance. However, when everyone came here, they did not expect that the so-called land of inheritance with the powerful inheritance formation would actually be like this. Could it be that the inheritance array formation has failed? No one could say why. Wang Sheng didn't mind voicing his opinion. The array formation has been around for 1,000 years. There is no stable spiritual energy to support it. There is also no earth-fire vein to provide energy. It's normal for it to fail, right? Impossible. Everyone retorted in unison. The inheritance array formation can't fail. Could it be that the key lies in this statue? Wang Sheng saw that everyone was in agreement. He didn't argue with them and directly attracted everyone's attention to the Lao Jun statue. Chapter 1088. The walls and the ground were empty, so the only focus would definitely be on the old Supreme Lord statue. Even without Wang Sheng saying it, everyone would definitely think the same way. However, there were so many people just now, and some of them had their own thoughts, so no one said it out loud. Wang Sheng stirred up this silent, tacit understanding, and everyone seemed to have a way out. They nodded and took the initiative to walk to the side of the old Supreme Lord statue to study it. Old Taoist Ling Su glanced at Wang Sheng with a hint of a smile in his eyes. Wang Sheng exchanged a knowing look, then crossed his arms and stood at the back, watching everyone study it. In reality, only the 6 sect masters really went forward to study it. Even the Grand Abbey Dean stood at the same spot, waiting for the results. Since they were already standing there, could they have discovered something that could escape everyone's eyes? This statue was obviously carved with local stones, and Wang Sheng could tell at a glance. Even though Wang Sheng was not at the level of Master Lu, who could tell the difference between a rock and a rock with just a glance, Wang Sheng was still able to tell that the rock was not the same. Not only was it the same stone, but the old Supreme Lord statue itself was directly connected to the stones on the ground. It was basically a piece of stone, but someone hollowed it out to form such a space. There is even a statue of the old Supreme Lord suddenly carved in the middle. There must be a reason for this. The 6 sect masters looked very seriously. The Grand Abbey Dean behind them was afraid that they could not see it clearly, so he specially instructed a few Taoist priests of the Qing generation to light a few huge candles made of demonic beast oil. With that, the space inside was immediately lit up, making it convenient for everyone to observe. The sudden light attracted the attention of the 6 sect masters. They turned around to take a look, then continued to study the old Supreme Lord statue. After looking up and down, they did not seem to find anything. The Bright Connection sect master seemed to be a little impatient, so he directly took action. He finally remembered his identity. He first bowed to the statue of the Grand Supreme Elder and apologized. Then, he stretched out his hand and began to touch the statue carefully. The Elder Supreme Lord statue was as tall as 2 people. People below might not be able to see what was above. Therefore, the Bright Connection sect leader took a look and touched the stone statue below. When he couldn't see anything, he jumped onto the legs of the sitting statue and started inspecting the upper part. The other 5 sect leaders didn't follow suit. Everyone stopped and looked at the Bright Connection sect leader's actions. To be honest, the Bright Connection sect leader's actions were really disrespectful to Lao Jun. Everyone looked at him with an ugly expression, but no one said anything. Bright Connection sect leader was about to climb onto the head of old Lord statue and check inch by inch. Everyone took a few steps back and didn't block his light. They just watched quietly. After inspecting for half an hour and finding nothing, the Bright Connection sect leader jumped down with a livid face. He suddenly turned to the Grand Abbey Dean and asked sternly, "Grand Abbey Dean, we were all inspecting here just now, but you didn't even look at it. Did you know that there's nothing here?" Seeing the Bright Connection sect leader questioning the Grand Abbey Dean with a righteous expression, Wang Sheng's eyes widened. What kind of weirdo would say something like that? How could he be the sect master of a Tao sect with such a standard? From the beginning, the Bright Connection sect leader had been reluctant. He had been nitpicking along the way and suspected that the old Supreme Lord Temple had opened the land of inheritance without permission. In the end, the series of array formations in the passageway had proved that the old Supreme Lord Temple couldn't have tampered with it. How could this guy still say something like that? Because the place is small. I can't squeeze in if you guys surround it. The Grand Abbey Dean was expressionless. He smiled at the Bright Connection sect leader and said, Bright Connection sect leader, have you finished looking? Can you move aside and let me have a look? The Bright Connection sect leader didn't expect the Grand Abbey Dean to turn his questioning into nothing so easily. His face flushed red, and he couldn't say anything. The Grand Abbey Dean smiled and walked forward slowly. He walked straight to the Bright Connection sect leader. The Bright Connection sect leader was shocked and was about to take precautions. However, the Grand Abbey Dean didn't even look at him. He bypassed him and walked directly to the old Supreme Lord Temple. He started to study it carefully. As he looked, he asked an old Taoist of the Qing generation to bring the giant candle closer so that he could have a better look. Wang Sheng shook his head. How dare the Bright Connection sect leader challenge the Grand Abbey Dean with such a standard? He really didn't know how to write the word death. How boring. Wang Sheng gave the old Taoist Ling Su a look and signaled him to go out for a chat. The old Taoist also felt bored staying there. He nodded, and the two walked out of the passageway without informing anyone. It was pitch black along the way, but neither of them was affected. They walked out of the passageway quietly. After squeezing out of the narrow hole, Wang Sheng nodded to the Taoist priest at the entrance. Then, he went out of the kitchen to get some fresh air. The old Taoist Ling Su followed behind and walked with Wang Sheng to the side of the clean incense burner. Old Taoist, how did that guy become the sect leader? Wang Sheng didn't care about what the old Taoist said. He asked directly, are the people of their sect blind? There was a disciple called Tong Hui who was good in all aspects. Later, when he was about to take over the sect, he suddenly died of an evil disease. The old Taoist didn't hide anything. He answered quickly. Everyone felt that there was something wrong with it, but they couldn't find any evidence. Didn't those inside use this to stab that guy? Indeed, the hot-tempered person inside had clearly said that the sect leader of the Bright Connection had the ability to kill junior brother Tong Hui. What did you find? Although the old Taoist cultivation was much higher than Wang Sheng's, he wasn't on the same level as Wang Sheng in terms of observation and creativity. Patting the clean incense burner, the old Taoist asked Wang Sheng. No. Wang Sheng shook his head. There isn't even a trace of an array formation. Old Taoist, did your records make a mistake? Or did you make a mistake when you copied it? Where's the legacy formation? There isn't a trace of an array formation. Can you find me a legacy formation? The legacy formation can't be wrong. The old Taoist shook his head. Even if the old Taoist sect made a mistake, did the other 6 sects make a mistake too? Everyone has the same records, so there must be a legacy formation. Then why are we still wasting time inside? Wang Sheng turned to look at the kitchen. Then, he turned back and said to the old Taoist Ling Su, look for the legacy formation directly. How can it be so easy? The old Taoist still shook his head. Where can we find a legacy formation in such a big place? Stupid. Wang Sheng mocked the old Taoist without hesitation. The legacy formation needs energy. It's impossible that there isn't any replenishment. Find a possible source of energy in this place. For example, where is the earth fire vein? Chapter 1089. When the old Taoist heard Wang Sheng's question, he rolled his eyes at Wang Sheng and replied snappily, do you think the old Su family was so stupid to build a city in a place with an earth fire vein? The old Su family was, of course, the current royal family. The surname of the royal family was Su. In Beijing, everyone had to address the old Su family as the royal family. Only the old Taoist dared to address the old Su family in such an arrogant manner. Didn't you say there's something else if there's no earth fire vein? Wang Sheng smiled and asked the old Taoist, what else can replace the earth fire vein? Why don't you tell us and we'll just go look for it? The old Taoist looked embarrassed when he heard Wang Sheng's words. What do you mean? Wang Sheng saw the strange expression on the old Taoist's face and could not help but ask, don't tell me you don't know what else can replace the earth fire vein. Isn't that normal? Old Taoist Ling Su looked like a rascal. I'm not an array master. Isn't it normal that I don't know what can replace the earth fire vein? You cultivate the Xing character formula of the 9 symbolic words. Don't you want to learn more about the foundation of array formations? Wang Sheng looked unhappy as he pointed at the old Taoist Ling Su and asked, "You said it yourself. It's enough for me to learn the foundation of array formations." The old Taoist laughed. "If that's the case, why should I learn so much nonsense?" F***CK. Wang Sheng gave the old Taoist the middle finger. The old Taoist had been insulting Wang Sheng with the middle finger. Even if he did not know what the middle finger meant, he refused to admit defeat and gave Wang Sheng the middle finger. Has the terrain of Mount Laojun not changed for thousands of years? Wang Sheng knew that the old Taoist was a man of his word. If he said he didn't know, then he definitely didn't know. Therefore, he could only think of a solution himself. Never changed. Old Taoist Ling Su had a look of surprise on his face as he asked Wang Sheng, "Why don't you tell me? How can the terrain of this mountain change?" "Ignorant," Wang Sheng sneered. "Even a slightly stronger earthquake or volcanic eruption can change the terrain of the mountain. What's impossible?" "I see. Never." The old Taoist answered with certainty. "For the past 1,000 years, the capital has been as safe as a rock. Nothing like what you said has ever happened." "That makes things easier." Wang Sheng turned to go down the mountain and suddenly asked the old Taoist, "Do you think I should say it?" "Of course you should." The person who answered Wang Sheng was not the old Taoist Ling Su, but the bright connection hierarch whom Wang Sheng hated. Wang Sheng turned his head and saw the bright connection hierarch running out of the kitchen in a hurry. Behind him were the 5 hierarchs and the grandmaster of the temple. When Wang Sheng and the old Taoist were chatting just now, they had already heard some movements in the kitchen passage. Wang Sheng had deliberately said some things. At the end of the underground passage, Wang Sheng did not even need to look. He only needed to use the 5 words formula to know what was going on inside. That was why Wang Sheng felt bored and left with the old Taoist. The Laojun Abbey Dean tried so hard to open the land of heritage. Do you want to hide it from all the Taoists in the world? The bright connection hierarch placed himself on the moral high ground. Since the land of heritage has been opened, we have no intention of returning empty-handed. You have to say it now, even if you don't want to. Otherwise, you will be the public enemy of all the Taoists in the world. Hierarch. Wang Sheng faced the bright connection hierarch and asked seriously, "May I know your seniority?" "What do you mean?" The bright connection hierarch was stunned. Wasn't it obvious? His name had already been called. Bright connection, of course, he was of the Tang generation. "I am of the Su generation." Wang Sheng pointed to himself. "I kowtowed to my master. I accepted a disciple on behalf of my master." The Grand Abbey Dean and the disciples of the Qing generation witnessed the ceremony. "Now you say that I, a disciple of the Su generation, am the public enemy of all the Taoists in the world?" The bright connection hierarch recalled that when the Laojun Abbey accepted Wang Sheng as a layman elder, they had informed the various sections. Wang Sheng wasn't speaking nonsense. This was awkward. Putting aside the fact that one of the 2 old ancestors with the word Su in the Dao sect was considered a public enemy of the Dao sect, just the way the bright connection sect master spoke to Wang Sheng made it clear that he was offending his superior. "It seems like until now, you haven't bowed to me." Wang Sheng smiled and said to the bright connection hierarch. The bright connection hierarch turned to look at the other 5 hierarchs. The other 5 were looking at him with a strange gaze. The bright connection hierarch had no choice but to bow to Wang Sheng. "Greetings, elder." The bright connection sect leader greeted as he bowed. He had no choice but to salute. Offending one's superiors and disrespecting one's elders was a big mistake. If the others joined forces, they could definitely use this as an excuse to cause trouble. They could even join forces with the other disciples of his sect to remove him from his position as the headmaster. Anyway, they only needed a sufficient reason to cause trouble. After the bright connection hierarch bowed, the other 5 hierarchs also bowed to Wang Sheng. "Greetings, elder." Wang Sheng extended his hand and gestured in the air as his response. He looked towards the Grand Abbey Dean. The Grand Abbey Dean saw Wang Sheng's questioning gaze and nodded slightly. There are other ways to provide energy for the inheritance array formation for 1,000 years without stopping other than the earth fire vein. After getting the Grand Abbey Dean's approval, Wang Sheng said slowly, "The terrain here hasn't changed for 1,000 years. Some things can still be traced. For example what? This time, it wasn't the bright connection hierarch who asked. It was the hot-tempered hierarch. For example, the hot spring." Wang Sheng smiled and replied gently, "To put it bluntly, the hot spring is the same as the earth fire vein. It's just that it's not as hot as the earth fire vein." Hot spring? Hearing Wang Sheng's reply, everyone was delighted. Then, they revealed a pondering expression. "There really is a hot spring nearby." An old Taoist with the surname Qing suddenly interrupted. Originally, when the few hierarchs and old Taoist Ling Su were talking, it would be unreasonable for others to interrupt. However, the bright connection hierarch couldn't do anything about it. The Taoist who spoke was from the surname Qing, while he was from the surname Tong, which was 2 generations lower than the surname Qing. Even if the Taoist scolded him, he would have to bear the consequences, let alone something that he was interested in. Everyone instantly perked up. There was really a hot spring here? Wang Sheng's words made sense. Someone knew about arrays. Since the terrain hadn't changed, the hot spring couldn't be compared to the earth fire vein, but it could still provide energy for the array formation for 1,000 years. Perhaps the inheritance array formation was near the hot spring. If there really was a hot spring near this shabby Taoist temple, it was probably as Wang Sheng had said. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence that there was a hot spring near the inheritance array formation? Yes or no? I'm afraid we have to go and take a look. Wang Sheng didn't expect that there would really be a hot spring near the inheritance array formation. Chapter 1090. The old Taoist who had just said that there was a hot spring took the initiative to lead the way. Everyone followed behind him and walked towards the hot spring one step at a time. Although there was a hot spring, no one enjoyed it. No one came here at all. There wasn't even a path. Fortunately, Wang Sheng had the lowest cultivation. It was no problem for him to walk this short distance. They didn't walk far, about 7 or 8 miles. They came to the top of the mountain. The old Taoist, who was leading the way, pointed to the foot of the mountain and said to everyone, "That's the hot spring." Actually, even if he didn't say it, everyone could see it. There was a white gas in the valley. It was obviously water vapor. It was about 200 to 300 meters down from the top of the mountain. Let's go and take a look. Once the Bright Connection sect leader saw the obvious hot spring, he couldn't wait to rush down. It was as if he would be the first to find the inheritance formation if he rushed over. His eagerness made everyone speechless. This guy can actually sit in the position of sect leader for so many years. Wang Sheng couldn't help but complain to the old Taoist Ling Su who stayed behind. It's a miracle that he didn't get killed. When the old Taoist heard Wang Sheng say the word "this guy," he had already blocked the conversation between him and Wang Sheng. He didn't want the Bright Connection sect leader to hear it, and it would be awkward. Even so, the Grand Abbey Dean stood back calmly. He glanced at Wang Sheng, but didn't say anything. He did it on purpose. The old Taoist went straight to the point and commented, showing weakness to the enemy, making people think that he's stupid and impulsive and easy to deal with. Then, I see. Wang Sheng nodded and understood the Bright Connection sect leader's strategy. So he's deliberately messing things up? Who gave him the guts? How dare he play around with the inheritance of Taoism? We're investigating. The Grand Abbey Dean's voice cut in calmly. When we find out who's behind him, he'll be useless. This kind of person is the shame of our Tao sect. This made Wang Sheng feel even more at ease. He simply walked at the back with the old Taoist and observed carefully as they walked. Elder Wang. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist priest were only halfway through the distance of 200 to 300 meters when they heard the sect leader of Illumination's urging shout. However, this time, this fellow knew his manners and used the term elder. Ignoring that guy, Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su continued to carefully observe their surroundings. They looked around for any suspicious places and slowly walked over. "Did you find anything?" "Did you find anything?" Just as they walked to the edge of the hot spring, the Bright Connection sect leader asked anxiously. He looked impatient and didn't have the calmness of a Taoist expert at all. If this was a facade that this fellow had deliberately created, Wang Sheng could not help but admire him. To be able to turn a Tao sect leader into such a depraved and shameless person, Wang Sheng could not help but admire him. "I didn't find anything." Wang Sheng pretended to look for a long time before replying slowly. "Didn't you say that the hot spring can provide energy for the inheritance formation?" The Bright Connection sect leader's face was filled with disbelief. He asked Wang Sheng, "Why can't I find anything?" Not to mention Wang Sheng, even the other sect leaders in Grand Abbey Dean felt embarrassed. The Bright Connection sect leader's display of idiocy was simply intolerable. How could they have the same status as such a person outside? Even though the Grand Abbey Dean and old Taoist Ling soon knew that this fellow was pretending to be a fool, they were still shocked by his performance. Could a person really pretend to be a fool? I said it's possible. Wang Sheng took a deep breath and decided not to be calculative with this person who would soon lose his future. He replied slowly, "Moreover, even if the energy is really provided by the hot spring, the inheritance formation can't be placed in public. You won't find anything even if you stand here for a few years." "Then why are you looking at it so carefully?" The Bright Connection sect leader asked Wang Sheng without hesitation. "Because it's my first time here and my first time seeing the hot spring. Can I look at it more?" Wang Sheng rolled his eyes and replied to the Bright Connection sect leader. The Bright Connection sect leader asked for a snub. He probably knew that the people here didn't like him. He looked around awkwardly and didn't say anything. So much for talking about the inheritance formation. Wang Sheng finally didn't have to face the annoying Bright Connection sect leader. When he spoke to the others, he was obviously much more polite. "The main point is the formation. So, look for the fluctuation of the formation." A few of the sect leaders had actually been secretly searching for the array formation. However, they were led astray by the sect leader of the Bright Connection. Now that Wang Sheng had reminded them, they glanced at the sect leader of the Bright Connection in annoyance before continuing on their own. Wang Sheng was also observing and calculating carefully. The hot spring gushed out from a spring in the middle of the mountain and flowed to the valley below to form a pool. Wang Sheng stood by the pool and reached out his hand. The temperature was very high, at least 60 degrees Celsius. Obviously, it wasn't suitable for bathing. Usually, when this kind of spring gushed out, it would form a small stream. However, there was no other exit in this valley. After the hot spring flowed into the pool in the valley, it didn't flow anywhere else. However, the pool didn't increase indefinitely. This meant that there must be an outlet. Perhaps there was an underground river or other outlet at the bottom of the pool. The Bright Connection sect leader seemed to only have eyes for Wang Sheng. He kept staring at Wang Sheng. Seeing that Wang Sheng was looking at the pool, he looked at the pool too. He frowned and looked for a while. Suddenly, the Bright Connection sect leader seemed to have understood something. His eyes lit up. He looked around quietly. There weren't many people here. Other than the Bright Connection sect leader, there were 5 sect leaders, Grand Abbey Dean, Wang Sheng, Old Taoist Ling Su, and 5 Old Taoist Qing. There were only so many people. Although the Tao sect wanted to open the land of inheritance this time, it caused a huge commotion. Just the Grand Abbey Dean alone had sent over 100 people. However, those people were gathered near the previous Taoist temple. It was a distance away. They had to walk 7 to 8 miles and cross a few mountains. Even if there was any movement here, no one would notice. Everyone was checking the fluctuations of the formation. Some of them were even holding formation stones. They looked very carefully. No one noticed the Bright Connection sect leader's actions. A smile slowly appeared on the Bright Connection sect leader's face. He carefully walked to the pool near the crowd. Then, he imitated Wang Sheng and reached his hand into the pool. It was as if he wanted to test the temperature of the pool. At the same time, a wisp of odorless gas was emitted from the Bright Connection sect leader's hand. It was stimulated by the heat of the pool and quickly spread to the surroundings. Seeing that no one was moving, the Bright Connection sect leader smiled and stood up. Then, he shook the water off his hand. He was already laughing in his heart. A bunch of fools. You were fooled by me. Do you really think you're smart? Chapter 1091. Just as the head of the Bright Sect was waiting to see what would happen to these guys who had never looked up to him, Wang Sheng suddenly took out a mask from his storage ring and put it on. Before putting it on, he swallowed an elixir. If you have an antidote pill, take it. If you don't, I have some here. Wang Sheng casually handed one to old Taoist Ling Su and then threw one to the Grand Abbé Dean. At the same time, he said something inexplicable. It's time to clean up the sect. The Grand Abbé Dean nodded. Before he could do anything, old Taoist Ling Su had already quickly restrained the head of the Bright Sect. With one blow, the head of the Bright Sect did not even have a chance to struggle. He was captured alive by the old Taoist. It was as easy as catching a child. The old Taoist of the Qing generation took out their antidote pills and swallowed them almost immediately after Wang Sheng finished speaking. Although the other sect masters reacted a little slower, they were only a little late. Then, the old Taoist of the Qing generation took the antidote pills. Anyway, taking the antidote pills would not kill them. It was better to be prepared. What was there to be afraid of? As for Wang Sheng's mask, none of them had it. However, they had their own ways. Following Wang Sheng's instructions, each of them would a piece of linen or a piece of clothing with water and covered their mouths and noses. After doing all this, the straightforward sect master asked, "What happened?" He released the poison. Wang Sheng smiled and pointed at the head of the Bright Sect. "It's on his right hand." In addition, he also informed someone to come. "Let's wait for a while and we'll know." It was already dusk and the sky was getting dark. Everyone looked around and sensed their auras. It seemed that no one was lying in ambush. At their level, they were very confident in their cultivation. When Wang Sheng said that the head of the Bright Sect had informed someone to come, everyone was very confused. Where did the person come from? I've always wondered why Bao Qing Yutang's Zhu Xingxing, a businessman, would think of using religion to control the barbarians in the Mountain Yu land. Wang Sheng said with a smile. It was also an explanation to everyone. Now I understand. There was a professional teacher. The Bright Connection sect leader's expression changed drastically. How did Wang Sheng know about such a secret? The others were also puzzled, but when Wang Sheng looked up at the sky, everyone understood. In the distant sky, 10 huge shadows suddenly appeared. Even though they were very far away, they could see that the shadows were huge. If not for Wang Sheng's reminder, no one would have noticed a group of flying demonic beasts flying in that direction. These demonic beasts flew silently. Unless one was within 100 meters, it was impossible to detect them. If everyone was unaware, just now, the Bright Connection sect leader would have poisoned them unknowingly. The poison might not be able to knock everyone down, but it would definitely affect their cultivation. If the experts on the demonic beasts suddenly attacked them within 100 meters and everyone was poisoned, the consequences would be unthinkable. The few sect leaders glared at the Bright Connection sect leader, then went on their guard. As for the people on the Old Lord Temple's side, they were ready to take action. However, everyone still pretended to be at a loss, as if they didn't notice the flying demonic beasts at all. Apart from Wang Sheng, all the old Taoists present were experienced experts who had lived for decades or even centuries. How could they not know how to lure the enemy in? All of them behaved very naturally. From afar, even the Bright Connection sect leader seemed to be talking to old Taoist Ling Su. The old Taoist nodded his head, as if he agreed with the Bright Connection sect leader's words. Those flying demonic beasts flew very carefully, almost sticking close to the mountain. Even if someone was watching, they might not be able to detect them. When they rushed to the nearest mountain top and the demonic beasts began to swoop down, everyone seemed to have woken up from a dream and started to shout loudly. The experts on the flying demonic beasts looked at the panicking crowd with satisfaction. It was only then that they realized it was too late. They had confirmed the signal from the smell released by the Bright Connection sect leader, which humans couldn't smell at all. They weren't worried that the crowd would discover it in advance. Moreover, they had already discussed with the Bright Connection sect leader. When they released the smell signal, The Bright Connection sect leader would release some poisonous gas that was unique to the mountain you land, silently tricking everyone. As long as one didn't pay attention and breathed in the poisonous gas, one's body would go limp after a while, and they wouldn't be able to fully mobilize their spiritual energy. Facing these experts, who had the advantage in numbers, was simply sending themselves to their deaths. The leading expert had already noticed that the old Taoist movements weren't normal, and he was overjoyed. This time, it could be said that they had captured all the Taoist sect leaders in one fell swoop, including the Grand Abbey Dean of the Laojun Temple, Ancestor Ling Xiu, and even Wang Sheng. The Gan family was really pitiful. They were unlucky. They had finally found a chance to ambush Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su, but they were bumped into by the disciples of the Laojun Temple who were sent out to welcome them. There was nothing they could do about it. Who asked them to be unlucky? However, who would have thought that in just a few short days, when everyone thought that no one would dare to plot against Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su near the Laojun Temple, the experts of the Shangyue Kingdom, with the help of their spies, not only captured Wang Sheng alive, they even took down the Laojun Temple and the other sect masters in one fell swoop? The leading expert couldn't help but feel happy when he thought about the expressions of those vassal states when they heard the news. That sense of superiority in terms of intelligence made him feel as happy as an orgasm. The flying demonic beasts flew very fast and very low. From the time they were discovered at the top of the mountain to the top of the valley, it only took 1 or 2 seconds. The experts on the flying demonic beasts were already prepared. They jumped off the back of the demonic beasts. At such a height, these experts wouldn't care at all. Kill! The leading expert gave the order, and the people in the air had already started to attack their respective targets. This was something that had been agreed upon long ago. Naturally, someone would spare Wang Sheng's life. However, while they were still in the air, the Shangyue experts had already realized that something was wrong. The Taoist priest below seemed to be a little too calm, especially Wang Sheng, who actually had a crossbow in his hand. Old Taoist, Abbey Dean, if one of you escapes, you'll lose face. Wang Sheng's voice was filled with laughter. The heavy sniper crossbow in his hand was already pointed at the flying demonic beast furthest away. I have to keep these beasts here. Don't let anyone disturb me. Don't worry. Old Taoist Ling Su's voice rang out beside Wang Sheng. Keep them alive if they can. If not, kill them all. Chapter 1092. The ones that the old Taoists said could stay alive were the flying demonic beasts. The old Taoists knew that Wang Sheng's 5-word formula of 9 symbolic words could affect flying demonic beasts, so he was reminding him. Wang Sheng had tried to control heavy snow back in the inner circle of the land of Thousand Despair, but he had failed. In the end, he had become friends and playmates with heavy snow, which was not a bad ending. However, these flying demonic beasts were only at the level of 6 or 7 stars, so it was unlikely that they could withstand the power of Wang Sheng's 5-word formula. Therefore, the old Taoist wanted Wang Sheng to try his best to survive. However, there were beast tamers on the flying demonic beasts. Even the old Taoist couldn't be sure that Wang Sheng could do it. The moment Wang Sheng raised his heavy sniper crossbow, the furthest flying demonic beast was destined to meet its tragic end. The 10 flying demonic beasts swooped down the valley. They were only a few hundred meters away from Wang Sheng, but the range of the heavy sniper crossbow was thousands of meters. Boom! Even though the flying demonic beast had flown high under the control of the beast tamer, it still couldn't avoid Wang Sheng's heavy arrow. The arrow exploded in the body of the flying demonic beast, killing it instantly. The beast tamer didn't know if his alertness was a blessing or a curse. When he tried his best to urge the flying demonic beast to fly higher, he didn't expect that the higher he flew, the higher he would fall. When the demonic beast he was sitting on died, the beast tamer realized the fear of death and let out a sharp and terrified scream. He only stopped when he landed on the ground with a loud thud. The Shangyue experts who had jumped down from the demonic beasts realized that they had been surrounded. It was a strange feeling. There were obviously 40 to 50 experts who had jumped down, which was far more than the number of Taoists present. However, they had this feeling that they were surrounded. Every old Taoist of the Qing generation had heard the music performed by the great master musicians at the Royal Grand Theatre, and all of them had made great progress after they came back. It could be said that among the old Taoists who came from the Grand Supreme Elderly Taoist Temple, even the weakest one was at the peak of the legendary realm. As for the 5 sect leaders, they were not to be underestimated either. Even if they did not have such good conditions as the temple of the great Supreme Lord in the capital, as the leaders, they could mobilize countless resources of their own sections. This was reflected in the 5 leaders, which was that each of them was at the peak of the legendary realm. As for the Grand Abbey Dean, he was a terrifying 10th degree realm expert. These so-called experts of the Shangyue Kingdom would never be able to imagine what kind of realm that was. When it came to old Taoist Ling Su's side, it was even more terrifying. Basically, none of the experts who rushed towards Wang Sheng or the old Taoist could withstand a blow from old Taoist Ling Su. With just one strike, the opponent instantly lost consciousness and fainted on the ground. This was only because the old Taoist was merciful and did not completely kill them. Otherwise, the ground would have been littered with corpses. Wang Sheng did not have to worry about being attacked at all. He only used the 5-word formula of the 9 secret words to try and control the 9 flying beasts in the air. The 9 flying beasts were not of the same species. There were at least 4 different species, and their appearances were very different. It had to be said that the Shangyue Kingdom had invested a lot in this. Of course, this also proved that the Shangyue Kingdom could not have such a huge impact in just a few years. The Dai family must have been involved in this. It was unknown whether it was because there were beast tamers controlling the beasts at close range, or because the flying beasts that had been tamed for decades were not easy to control. In short, Wang Sheng's 5-word formula did not succeed in making the flying beasts land on their own. However, it was not completely ineffective. At least the flying beasts were hovering at a low altitude, and none of them left. The experts below fell into a panic, seeing that there were fewer and fewer people who could move. At the same time, the beast tamers on the flying beasts were also panicking. They realized that they could not control the flying beasts to leave. As his feelings of despair grew, Wang Sheng suddenly realized that something was amiss. The eyes of the guys on the ground suddenly turned red, as if they were about to go crazy. Be careful! Wang Sheng only had time to warn everyone. The remaining 20-plus experts on the ground suddenly shouted in unison and rushed forward in a frenzy. Bang, 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 bang. Everyone attacked valiantly, but the opponents did not seem to care. The moment they were attacked, they died. However, the next moment their bodies exploded. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions was extremely powerful. The broken bones and flesh of the explosion carried an even more terrifying force. They attacked everyone from all directions, regardless of friend or foe. Fortunately, Wang Sheng's warning made everyone vigilant. Facing such a terrifying self-destruction attack, they all took a defensive stance. Even so, the 2 sect leaders and the 3 old Taoist Qing generation had their defenses broken by the broken bones, and their bodies were seriously injured. The sect leader of the Bright Connection, who had been restrained and thrown on the ground, had his body pierced by 2 broken bones. Fortunately, it was not a fatal spot. However, there was a shocking wound on his stomach, which looked terrifying. The entire valley seemed to have been rained with blood, flesh, and bones. In an instant, the entire place turned red. As for the experts who had been knocked out by the old Taoist Ling Su, their bodies were riddled with holes. They could not be more dead. Damn, these madmen who are controlled by religion. Wang Sheng somewhat understood the reason, but there was nothing he could do about it. He could only curse in his heart. These guys had been completely brainwashed. Once there was no turning back, they would immediately launch such a suicidal attack. It was impossible to guard against it. No wonder the Xia family and the Chiu family had never captured a captive. So that was why. Oh no! Wang Sheng suddenly realized something and looked up at the beast tamers. These guys also knew that they were in a desperate situation, so they were even more ruthless. Every beast tamer took out a long knife and mercilessly stabbed it into the neck of the flying demon beast they were riding on. This was fatal. How could the flying demon beasts have expected their masters to be so ruthless? They died in an instant without realizing it. 9 flying demon beasts fell from the sky like dumplings. Wang Sheng's attempt to control the flying demon beasts and capture them alive was completely ruined. There was no hope at all. The 9 beast tamers who were still alive also went crazy. While they were still falling from the sky, they suddenly exploded with a hideous smile. A rain of blood fell again. The old Taoist only had time to protect the sect leader of the Bright Connection before another fierce attack fell from the sky. This time, everyone was covered in blood. Many pieces of flesh and broken bones were hanging on their bodies. It was an indescribably disgusting sight. What kind of Taoism is this sect practicing? Wang Sheng did not care about the carnage at all. He just asked the old Taoist Ling Su in confusion, how can they control people so ruthlessly? Chapter 1093. No one present could answer this question, let alone old Taoist Ling Su. Originally, the sect leader of the Bright Connections sect also cultivated the great Tao of Taoism, but there were some differences in doctrine. It was originally considered an upright sect of Taoism. However, the scene of the Shanyue experts' crazy self-destruction made people shudder at the thought of it. Their crazed gazes before they died were obviously the result of extreme brainwashing. This was definitely not something that Bao Qing Yutang and Zhu Xingxing could think of. It could only be that the Taoism sect played a significant role in this. If they wanted to know the truth, they could only look for the answer from Tongming. Fortunately, under the last protection of old Taoist Ling Su, that guy did not die. At the beginning, 2 broken bones had opened up 2 holes in his body. At this point, all the more he could not die. Without an explanation, it would be hard for Tongming to die, even if he wanted to. The commotion here was so loud that even the Taoists guarding near the land of inheritance heard it from 10 miles away. Not long after, dozens of old Taoists rushed over. Standing at the top of the mountain, the Taoists were shocked when they saw that the entire valley was dyed red with blood. Finally, they were successful in their cultivation. Sensing the aura below, they were slightly relieved when they found that everything they were familiar with was still there and not in a mess. When they reached the bottom of the valley, everyone was still in a state of shock. On the contrary, the people in the valley might have been used to it for a long time and did not feel anything. The injured were dressed in an orderly manner. The sect leaders gathered together and did not know what to say. The other old Taoists of the Qing generation were cleaning up the broken bones and flesh in the valley. Seeing that the reinforcements had arrived, the Grand Abbey Dean directly ordered to bring over Tongming's senior and junior brothers who were already in the Laojun Temple. Originally, the Grand Abbey Dean had already planned to have Tongming's senior and junior brothers impeach him at a delicate time. Then, with everyone present and the conclusive evidence, they would remove Tongming's sect leader. Now, there was no need to go through so much trouble. Tongming had given everyone a huge handle on him. Everything he did was justifiable. Although they said that they were cleaning up, the few old Taoists only cleaned the bloodstains on their bodies and did not do much else. Everything here was the best evidence. It was also the best support for the few brothers of Illumination sect. Although the sky was slowly darkening, no one present wanted to leave. Everyone waited patiently here. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist also washed their faces in the hot spring. Although the temperature of the pool was high, it definitely couldn't hurt the 2 of them. It was a noisy night. Some people came, some left, some cursed, some rejoiced, and so on. Tongming's senior and junior brothers rushed over that very night. They had been staying in the Grand Supreme Elder's Temple for a few days and were waiting for the right time to launch a fatal blow on Illumination. There was no need for that now. Tongming had already shown his worst side in front of the few sect leaders. As long as these senior and junior brothers came here to testify, they could go back and appease the people of that sect. They didn't have to question the sect leader's reputation, which made the senior and junior brothers even more satisfied. The injured Tong Ming had been safely rescued. His wounds were also bandaged, and he had woken up. His cultivation had been destroyed. Even if he wanted to resist, he couldn't. As for committing suicide, he didn't have the ability to do so. The irrefutable evidence of colluding with the Shangyue kingdom and plotting against several sect leaders of the Dao sect was irrefutable. Not only were the corpses all over the valley, but the corpses of the 9 flying demonic beasts were also intact. Apart from the Shangyue kingdom, where else could there be flying demonic beasts? In addition, the poisonous substances in Tong Ming's storage ring, the thing that could summon the masters of the Shangyue kingdom, and some other letters related to the Shangyue kingdom also fully proved this point. Among the poisonous substances, there was even one that could really cause the terrible disease that caused Tong Hui's death. Now that it had been dug out, it could be said that Tong Ming had no chance of making a comeback. In this regard, Wang Xing didn't think much of it. Why did these scheming guys always keep the letters they exchanged? What good would it do him to keep this kind of evidence? Did it feel good to be dug out as irrefutable evidence of his wrongdoings? Of course, regardless of whether this Tong Ming was smart or stupid, he was dead for sure. Now that he was still alive, he just lacked a conviction ceremony. Would the Dao sect really allow such a traitor to live? Not to mention him, Baoqing Yutang and the others probably wouldn't have a good ending either. The Dao sect usually didn't care about worldly affairs and didn't care about the power struggles outside. However, it didn't mean that the Dao sect was easy to bully and plot against. One night and one morning was enough for the Dao sect masters to do a lot of things. The senior and junior brothers of Tong Ming immediately rushed back to their sect the next afternoon. It had already been agreed that their sect would be merged into the Laojun Temple. Now that they went back to appease the disciples, they would immediately announce it. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su were like 2 outsiders when the Grand Abbey Dean and the sect masters were dealing with these things. Neither of them would care about these things in the Dao sect. Just as the old Taoist had said when he knew Wang Sheng a long time ago, these were actually some bullsh**T things that were completely meaningless to the old Taoist. However, because of these things, the Dao sect's land of inheritance was also greatly affected. The search for the inheritance formation was also slightly delayed. In the words of the Grand Abbey Dean, it was worth it. At least a stable and united Dao sect was much better than some guys with ulterior motives sneaking in and being qualified to receive the Dao sect's inheritance. If the inheritance formation was found, with Tong Ming's identity as the sect master at that time, he would definitely have the opportunity to receive the inheritance. Wang Sheng would definitely not be willing to let such a person inherit the inheritance formation that he had painstakingly found. This was also good. He did not have to worry about this problem. On Earth, Mr. Chong once said, to resist foreign aggression, one must first stabilize the internal situation. While others were busy, Wang Sheng and the old Taoists were actually busy too. It was just that they were busy in different directions. Wang Sheng was still busy looking for the inheritance formation. Why was he so anxious to start it? The old Taoist Ling Su had his own thoughts about this. When he was discussing with Wang Sheng, he asked, "Did he see you pay attention to the pool water? And this deep pool does not have an outlet on the surface, so he felt that he had found the secret of the inheritance formation?" Maybe. Wang Sheng replied non-committally. This question could only be asked by Tong Ming himself, who knew what he was thinking at that time. Then, is there an inheritance formation below? The old Taoist followed up with another question. Obviously, Wang Sheng quickly gave the old Taoist Ling Su an unexpected answer. No. Chapter 1094. When he first heard the word obviously, the old Taoist was still very happy. However, when he heard the word not, the old Taoist smile immediately froze on his face. What do you mean by not? The old Taoist asked Wang Sheng bluntly. It's literally what it means. Wang Sheng replied disapprovingly. Old Taoist, you've known me for so long. When have I ever played such a mystifying game with you? If it's not an inheritance array, then why did you bring us all the way here to investigate? The old Taoist was really speechless. He had caused such a big incident. So many people had died, and even Tongming had lost his position as the head of the sect. He was afraid that he would not even be able to keep his life. In the end, it was all because of this place that Wang Sheng said was not. If we don't investigate, how do we know it's not? Wang Sheng said confidently. He looked at the old Taoist Ling Su as if he was looking at a fool. If Tongming knew this result, he would probably cry. The old Taoist suddenly laughed. The more he thought about it, the funnier he felt. He could not help but laugh out loud. Wang Sheng was also affected by the old Taoist Ling Su and laughed out loud. Not far away, the Taoist priests looked at the two old ancestors laughing wildly. They did not dare to come up and ask why they were laughing. They could only watch the two of them laugh like madmen. The old Taoist laughed so hard that he was about to cry. At this moment, he really wanted to know what kind of expression Tongming would have when he heard the news. Seeing that there was nothing else for them to do here, the old Taoist patted Wang Sheng's shoulder. The two of them casually said goodbye to one of the old Taoists present and said that they were going back to the Lao Jun temple to clean up. Which old Taoist present dared to stop the two of them? The two of them leisurely went straight to the Lao Jun temple. Be it the Grand Abbey Dean or the other leaders, no one took the old Taoist report seriously. However, when they heard Wang Sheng's instructions before he left, everyone frowned. Elder, did he really say that? The Grand Abbey Dean asked the old Taoist seriously. That's simple. I shouldn't have passed the wrong message. The old Taoist who came to report was also of the Qing generation, which was higher than the Grand Abbey Dean. He joked casually, if the elder really said so, I can swear in the name of the Grand Elder. Do as the elder says. The Grand Abbey Dean nodded, but his mind drifted elsewhere with what Wang Sheng said. The other sect leaders also had a pensive look on their faces. Everyone was wondering if they had made a mistake or not. On the way back, there were only Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su. The old Taoist asked Wang Sheng curiously, why did you remind us to guard the Taoist temple in the land of inheritance? Shouldn't I? Wang Sheng asked. After all, it's recorded in the ancient books of the various families. There's really an array that can be opened with a key. Shouldn't we guard it well? If you put it that way, you should. The old Taoist was speechless again. He immediately asked, but isn't it a little too formal for you to remind us like that? No way. Wang Sheng retorted. I just pulled an old Taoist aside and said that. How is that formal? Say it. The old Taoist ignored Wang Sheng's feigned ignorance. Did you find anything inside? Not yet. Wang Sheng shook his head. Without waiting for old Taoist Ling Su to continue asking, Wang Sheng answered directly. However, since it's recorded in the ancient books that you personally copied, and if the other records can be used, there must be something we haven't discovered. I was just unhappy with Tongming's way of doing things. Now that he's gone, I naturally have to study it properly. In that case, you said that the earth-fire vein, the hot spring, and so on were all to distract us? Old Taoist Ling Su asked, a little dissatisfied. Not really. Wang Sheng shook his head. To find the inheritance array, we really have to find the source of the array's energy. Seeing that the old Taoist seemed a little dissatisfied, Wang Sheng smiled and explained to the old Taoist, don't worry, old Taoist. I'm more anxious than anyone to find the inheritance array. Regarding Mei Er's matter, we can't drag it out any longer. Old Taoist Ling Su was slightly satisfied after hearing Wang Sheng's words. That was the truth. From a practical point of view, the initiator of opening the land of inheritance was still Wang Sheng, and it was to help Wang Sheng solve Mei Er's problem. As for the Grand Abbey Dean and the others taking advantage of the situation, it wasn't that important to Wang Sheng. Tongming's matter caused a huge uproar. After all, it was related to the Tao sects merging into the Grand Supreme Lord Temple. Therefore, it wasn't just spread throughout the Tao sect. Even the feudal lords knew about it. Within 2 days, the news spread rapidly throughout the world. The royal family didn't say anything and directly sent officials to the Grand Supreme Lord Temple. Of course, they also went to the scene to take a look. The ground was littered with minced meat and broken bones, the half-pulled corpse of a flying demonic beast, and the complete corpses of 9 flying demonic beasts. Everything showed that the Shangyue kingdom had really set their sights on the Dao sect. They had extended their hands into the Dao sect. Once the news spread, the monarchs of the Xia family and the Qiu family were even happier. The Shangyue kingdom had gone crazy. Not only did they offend the Tang Empire, they even wanted to offend the Dao sect. Was the Dao sect something that ordinary people could offend? Just the Laojun temple alone was enough to make all the feudal vassals in the world shudder with fear. The entire Dao sect had joined forces. The Shangyue kingdom really didn't want to live anymore. Moreover, it seemed that they didn't want to die fast enough. Of course, it was more important to analyze what was involved in the Shangyue kingdom. The Xia family, the Qiu family, and the Tang family all knew that the Dai family was probably related to the Shangyue kingdom. Now that the Shangyue kingdom was involved with the Dao sect, it was hard to imagine what else was involved. However, it was still good news. It was impossible for the Shangyue kingdom to have all the flying demonic beasts. Now that they had lost 10 of them, the speed and efficiency of the Shangyue kingdom's transfer of experts would definitely be affected. The time for a counterattack was getting closer. Wang Sheng and the old Taoists didn't care about the storm outside. They quietly did what they had to do in the Grand Supreme Lord Temple, waiting for the storm to calm down. How did you determine that there isn't an inheritance array under the hot spring? After returning to the Grand Supreme Lord Temple, the old Taoist and Wang Sheng cleaned up carefully. When the old Taoist and Wang Sheng were drinking and chatting in the scripture depository, the old Taoist finally asked the question that he had been wanting to ask. Because of the direction, Wang Sheng didn't hide anything from the old Taoist. The location of a valley is completely opposite to the direction of the passage in the land of inheritance. Just because of that, the old Taoist asked in confusion, "Isn't that enough?" Wang Sheng laughed. "Old Taoist, do you think that the ancestors of the Dao sect had nothing better to do, so they created a land of inheritance and dug such a long underground passage to fool you juniors? Where else do you think the real land of inheritance is?" Chapter 1095. It was clear that old Taoist Ling Su did not think that the founder had nothing better to do than to use such a huge project to toy with the younger generation. After thinking about it carefully, it seemed that what Wang Sheng said made sense. They didn't really discover the secret of the inheritance formation in that tunnel. The reason why old Taoist Ling Su didn't discover it was because Wang Sheng and the old Taoist didn't check it carefully at all. It was just a few sect masters looking at it, and the Bright Connection sect master even climbed on top of the Elder Supreme Lord statue. Wang Sheng didn't like the Bright Connection sect master, so he basically didn't say a word in the land of inheritance. Later, when he heard that they were coming out, he deliberately talked to old Taoist Ling Su about the earth-fire vein to divert everyone's attention to the hot spring valley. The old Taoist also understood that Wang Sheng didn't intend to find the real inheritance formation in the land of inheritance from the beginning. It was because of the Bright Connection sect master. Now, the position of the Bright Connection sect master was definitely gone, and he wouldn't be able to survive. Now, they could only calm the situation down and then go to the land of inheritance. In this aspect, the Grand Abbey Dean was very efficient. In just a few days, he had already sent back news. The disciples of the Bright Connection who brought the evidence back to their own sect exaggerated the despicable behavior of the Bright Connection sect. They especially publicized the murder of junior brother Tong Hui and the crime of colluding with Mountain Yu Land to plot for the land of inheritance. Then, the Bright Connection sect began to merge into the Grand Supreme Elderly Taoist Temple under the lead of all parties. First, some remote Taoist temples directly announced to the public that they were leaving the sect and joining the Elder Supreme Lord Temple. Then, some core Taoist temples also joined the ranks. In the end, the disciples of the Bright Connection directly brought the entire sect into the arms of the Elder Supreme Lord Temple in the name of the acting sect master. This series of actions was very fast. It only took half a month. Everything was completely according to the Grand Abbey Dean's plan, and the goal of annexing a sect was achieved. The other sects had obviously been informed beforehand, so they weren't surprised at all. Wangshen couldn't help but admire the Grand Abbey Dean's ability. It was such a big deal, but there was no objection from within the Taoism. He was indeed a master. Wangsheng clearly remembered that it had only been a month since he had talked to old Taoist Ling Su about the land of inheritance. In just a month, things had come to this. He could only say that the Grand Abbey Dean was really powerful. Ever since the last time we talked about the land of inheritance, the Grand Master has been making arrangements. The old Taoist knew the inside story. At this time, he had to remind Wang Sheng, "It's been a few years. Do you really think it's only been a few days?" That's still amazing. Wang Sheng was sincerely impressed. The Grand Abbot's ability to arrange everything without batting an eyelid was exactly what Wang Sheng needed to learn. Those who were good at fighting had no illustrious achievements. This was indeed the way of a master. This was also the highest state that an experienced sniper longed for. Mei came once in the middle. After knowing that Wang Sheng was fine, she went back happily. Wang Sheng was also happy to see that she had controlled herself well along the way. The Laojun Monastery's matter had been settled, and there were no more eyesores jumping out to cause trouble. Only then did the Grand Monastery Master personally came to the Sutra Depository to invite the old Taoist and Wang Sheng. Without further ado, everyone rushed to the land of inheritance once again. Because of Wang Sheng's reminder last time, the Taoist temple in the land of inheritance was well guarded. It was still a group of old Taoists from the Qing generation who were in charge. Unfortunately, after such a long time, they had checked the Taoist temple, the passageway, and the grand old Taoist statue countless times, but they didn't find anything unusual. There was not even a shadow of the inheritance formation. "Elder, what you said makes sense." The Grand Abbey Dean talked to Wang Sheng and the old Taoist about their judgment of the land of inheritance. After hearing the old Taoist's explanation of Wang Sheng, the Grand Abbey Dean agreed with it very much. In fact, the Grand Abbey Dean had thought about this problem later on and came to the same conclusion as Wang Sheng. The ancestors of the Taoist sect wouldn't use such a huge project and such a secret place to play such a big joke on the younger generation. In that case, the land of inheritance must be the land of inheritance. It was just that the younger generation hadn't found the inheritance formation. These days, our people who stayed here have also checked carefully and found nothing. The Grand Abbey Dean explained the situation on the way. There are two possibilities. One is that the inheritance formation is well hidden and we haven't found it yet. The other is that without the support of spiritual energy, the formation disappeared on its own. Naturally, we can't find any formation fluctuations. Elder, do you think that's more likely? Have you thought about it? Wang Sheng couldn't answer. Without Wang Sheng's personal inspection, Wang Sheng couldn't give a conclusion. But that didn't stop Wang Sheng from following the Grand Abbey Dean's train of thought. If there is an inheritance formation, what is it? A scroll? Or something else? Are there any records of this in the Laojun Temple? The Grand Abbey Dean and the old Taoist Ling Su looked at each other and shook their heads after a while. There are no records of it. The Grand Abbey Dean answered directly. It's not just in the records of our Laojun Temple. It's not in the records of the other sects either. No one knows what the inheritance is. It's very likely to be a scroll, and a scroll made from the skin of a high-level demon beast. The old Taoist Ling Su answered immediately. 1,000 years ago, there wasn't anything too good to record the inheritance. This was an analysis from a technical point of view, and it made sense. Wang Sheng agreed with this point of view, and the Grand Abbey Dean nodded. Even if there is no formation, did you find traces of a large number of scrolls? Wang Sheng asked the Grand Abbey Dean. Is this a clue? No. The Grand Abbey Dean still shook his head. It's empty. You saw it too? There's really nothing there. Let's go take a look. Wang Sheng didn't have any better suggestions, so he could only say that. They didn't talk along the way and rush to the place. The 5 leaders were all there, and it seemed like they had been studying for a few days. There were a few tents set up outside the shabby Taoist temple. They were probably studying there. They entered the narrow entrance again and walked along the long passage to the end of the Laojun Temple. Everyone stood at the entrance and gave all the space to Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su, so that they could study to their heart's content. This time, without the bright connection sect leader that Wang Sheng hated, Wang Sheng could finally study without interference. Starting from the Laojun Temple, Wang Sheng began to examine the entire space inch by inch. Chapter 1096. Wang Sheng was also very careful in his inspection. Apart from not climbing on top of the Laojun statue, he was very thorough in his inspection. Even the corners, the cracks in the walls, and the edge between the base of the statue and the ground were not spared. More than a dozen giant demon oil candles were specially lit inside, illuminating the entire space for the two of them to inspect. This inspection lasted for more than 2 hours. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist straightened their backs at the same time and looked at each other. "What did you find?" The Grand Abbey Dean's voice came from the entrance. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su both shook their heads. This place was basically carved from a single boulder. What did they find? Dozens of old Taoists had been inspecting this place for more than 10 days without any problems. It was impossible for Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su to find something unusual the moment they arrived. "Let's go out and take a look." Wang Sheng pondered for a moment and walked out of the underground passage again. Starting from the kitchen wall of the broken Taoist temple, Wang Sheng followed the direction of the underground passage in his memory and climbed up the mountain. The old Taoist Ling Su also followed. He did not say a word along the way and walked with Wang Sheng. The Grand Abbey Dean and the others did not follow in this direction, but they also looked in the direction of the two of them thoughtfully. After climbing over 2 mountains, Wang Sheng felt that the location was about right. Then, he began to look around. "Old Taoist, has Mount Laojun really not changed in the past 1,000 years?" Wang Sheng confirmed with the old Taoist Ling Su again. "That's right." The old Taoist answered with certainty. "The terrain of the mountain hasn't changed, and the river hasn't changed either, right?" Wang Sheng asked as he stared at a large river at the foot of the mountain. That was one of the 8 rivers surrounding the capital. Wang Sheng was very interested. "Has this river ever stopped flowing because of a drought?" "The river hasn't changed either." The old Taoist was still very certain. At the very least, his impression of it had never changed since he was young. It has always been this big. The few droughts only reduced the amount of water, but it never stopped flowing. "I think I know the energy source of the legacy array," Wang Sheng said to the old Taoist as he stared at the flowing river. "You mean this river?" The old Taoist didn't quite understand and asked doubtfully. "Yes, this is the river." Wang Sheng smiled with certainty. It had never stopped flowing, nor did it change its course. It had an abundant amount of water and a steady flow. Could there be a more perfect energy source than this? River water can be the source of energy for a formation? Old Taoist Ling Su clearly could not understand this. He looked at Wang Sheng with a puzzled expression. "How is that possible? It's scary to be uneducated." Wang Sheng shook his head and sighed. He could only look down on the old Taoist in terms of advanced knowledge. He had no sense of superiority when it came to cultivation. The Taoist ancestors were really interesting. They had clearly discovered the principle of resonance and used the river as an energy source, but they didn't record it down. Why was that? Was it because they looked down on strange skills? The problem was that in this world, the status of a true master craftsman was not low. Of course, the status of an ordinary craftsman was still very low. In fact, even a master craftsman only had some status in the pavilion of delicacy. The feudal lords had never thought much of them. If it wasn't for the fame of the music grandmaster, all parties would probably look down on musicians and treat them as servants. Sigh. Wang Sheng shook his head. This was not something that could be changed by the will of 1 or 2 people. Even Wang Sheng could do nothing about it. "Old Taoist, how good are you at swimming?" Wang Sheng asked. After that, he didn't wait for the old Taoist to answer and directly answered, "Forget it, pretend I didn't ask. Let's go down and take a look. The rules are the same as last time. Put on a mask and don't move." The old Taoist nodded cooperatively. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist quickly went down to the river, put on protective goggles and hard masks, and jumped into the river without hesitation. The old Taoist took Wang Sheng's arm and let Wang Sheng swim with him. The river was not very clear. It was slightly muddy and visibility was very low, but it was not impossible to see. In the water, they could see at least a few meters away. Any further, and they couldn't see clearly. However, this was enough for Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. The underwater propeller appeared in Wang Sheng's hand, and he dived deep into the river with Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. The river was very deep. After diving for more than 10 meters, they finally saw the river bottom. Wang Sheng did a rough calculation, and the water depth was close to 20 meters. Before entering the water, Wang Sheng had already determined the direction and swam along the shore. Wang Sheng also kept observing both sides of the river bottom. After diving for more than 2 miles in the river, Wang Sheng sensed a suction force at the bottom of the river near the foot of the mountain. However, the suction force was not very strong, and the propeller could completely overcome it. After moving in the direction of the suction force, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist saw clearly that there was a big hole at the bottom of the river at the foot of the mountain. The suction force was coming from there. There should be a smooth waterway inside that diverted part of the river water. As for where it led to, neither of them knew. However, based on the direction of the suction force, the tributary should be parallel to the river and kept going downstream. Wang Sheng guessed the same. In order to use the power of the river to provide energy for the legacy formation, something must be driven by the river and could only go downstream. After discovering this tributary, some of Wang Sheng's guesses were confirmed. Wang Sheng brought the old Taoist back to the surface and went ashore. "Did you find anything?" The old Taoist and Wang Sheng went down once. He saw everything Wang Sheng saw and felt everything Wang Sheng felt. However, there were many things he did not understand and could only ask Wang Sheng. "Yes, we'll be sure after going back and looking at some things." Wang Sheng nodded. After changing into dry clothes with the old Taoist, they climbed up the mountain again and went back the way they came. They rushed back to the shabby Taoist temple. Outside the Taoist temple, Wang Sheng asked the Grand Abbey Dean, "Where did the gravel go after we broke through the stone wall?" Those gravel were cleaned up by the old Taoist of the Qing generation. He had no idea where they were thrown to. "In the valley over there." The Grand Abbey Dean asked and got the answer. He told Wang Sheng, "I'll go take a look." Wang Sheng followed the directions and went straight to the valley. He saw a pile of gravel. There were a total of 3 stone walls, and all of them were very thick. There were a lot of gravel piled up, and it was very obvious. After Wang Sheng carefully checked the gravel, he finally confirmed the answer in his heart. "Old Taoist, if it was you, how did you dig a tunnel inside without destroying the stone wall?" Wang Sheng asked the old Taoist Ling Su with a relaxed smile. "Where did I store the excavated stones?" You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.